Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing MX-5 Cup for what is 2022. It's season 1 of the Cup, of course, and tonight we are in round number 9. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at Circuit Zandvoort for another highly anticipated and exciting round of racing the Mazda MX-5s, as our drivers will be looking to resume and get the final phase of their championship campaigns underway after a significant break, and a rather premature one at that. Of course, last time out we left you back in round 8 and 2 weeks ago, and we were expecting to have round number 9 last week, but due to the intervention of the romantic day known as Valentine's Day, we decided to give our drivers the opportunity to take a breather and instead make it so it was a 4-round run to the finish of the season in the end, rather than being a 3-round run. Indeed, the break would have been this week after round number 9 being completed. So as a result, we've got 4 rounds back to back. So if you were missing us last week and wondering what exactly had happened, well, there's your explanation. It is the case that we decided just to take a brief pause for Valentine's Day, but we're back and ready to go racing. Now, as you can see on the information there in the centre of your screen, whilst it does say broadcast and commentary by both Alex Everett from Crest Autosport and myself, Paul Walsh from TX141, it is unfortunately the case that you're only going to have myself, that is Paul Walsh from TX141 tonight. Alex Everett unfortunately not able to join me due to personal circumstances, but he's doing okay. Don't worry, it's not as though we've lost Alex. He hasn't succumbed to the taste of love on Valentine's Day, and it's not as though he won't be back in a week's time. It's just the case that he wasn't able to make it tonight due to clash of circumstances, but he'll be back in the commentary box with myself for round number 10 in a week's time. So that means you'll just have myself tonight, and well, we've got plenty of racing action available for you. This series, of course, brought to you by NXTGEN Racing in collaboration with Crest Autosport and Bobby Thompson Racing. It is the case that we are looking forward to some fantastic racing on action. Sorry, I should say Bobby Thompson and Motorsport rather than Bobby Thompson Racing, and we've got some fantastic racing action ahead. And our approximate schedule for tonight is as follows. In about 13 minutes time, so at 8 o'clock this evening at Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or UTC, we'll be getting underway with a 15-minute qualifying session to determine who will be on pole for the purposes of race number 1. We'll then have our first race of the 3 races, which will be the 15-minute sprint, and after that we'll be taking a brief breather before returning for race number 2. Race number 2, of course, being the partial reverse grid. Our top 12 are reversed, and we'll be going racing once again then. Race number 2, which will be another 15-minute sprint, and then we'll be taking another breather before returning for race number 3. And race number 3 being the 25-minute feature. Whilst there's no mandatory pit stop in the 25-minute race, it'll feel as though the tyres will be needing the pit stop by the end of it, given the amount of tyre wear and also brake wear that our MX-5 drivers will be receiving. Now, with all this in mind, we take a look at the schedule, of course, just to give you a reminder of where we are currently in the championship. And it is the case we started off at Silverstone in the United Kingdom on the 6th of December. And we made our way through December going to Knockhill, which was newly introduced to iRacing at that point in time, and then the Red Bull Ring GP circuit to wrap up the first 3 rounds. We then had the Christmas break before returning for round 4 at Montreal, then Daytona Road Course and round number 5, and then Bathurst for round number 6. And my goodness, did Bathurst produce some absolutely incredible racing and some daredevil moves. We then took another break before coming back for round number 7, which was at Monza GP on the 31st of January. Then last time out, it was the Snetterton 300 circuit back in the United Kingdom, the infamous British Touring Car circuit, perhaps the most technical circuit on the calendar, and that was on the 7th of February. And then, of course, whilst it says there the 14th of February for Zandvoort, which is today's round, it is the case that, in fact, the date today is Monday the 21st of February, so that is to account for the Valentine's Day date break. And now we are on round number 9, and we're in the Netherlands at Zandvoort, and then after that we'll be heading to Brazil for round number 10 in a week's time, and then back for Long Beach in round number 11 in the United States before wrapping up at the legendary Nürburgring circuit on the 14th of March, and that will be the final round on our calendar. Indeed, all of our drivers absolutely excited for the prospect of racing at the Nürburgring VLN layout, and indeed some fantastic racing action awaits us. But as we look away from our schedule then, let's also talk about what our standings are. Of course, we do have 3 classes of driver participating in this series, and it's only fair that we cover our Drivers' Championship as our races are continuing to get set in this final practice session. When the Pro Championship right now, it is the case that after the opening 8 rounds, we can see that right now it is Mikey Doble who is currently leading on 515 points with only an advantage of 23 points over Adam Delmont. A further 71 points back, it is the case we've got Lee Holmes, in fact 71 points off of our championship lead, I should really say. And well, Lee Holmes there in P3 on 444 points. And whilst it does seem to be a bit of a 2-horse race at the moment with regards to who is going to be winning the Pro Championship, you can imagine with 4 rounds to go, anything can happen with 4 rounds remaining. On top of that, Lee Holmes only having an advantage of what is their 16 points over Jamie Dory. Jamie Dory coming on strong as the season is progressing. You can imagine he'll be doing everything he can to try and dethrone Lee Holmes. And Deegan Fairclough should not be forgotten about as well in P5. And the fast charging man making his way up the order. Whilst he hasn't had perhaps some of the cleanest races, indeed been involved in a number of incidents, indeed a number of drives I had, Deegan Fairclough cannot be denied on pace and is really starting to close down the championship leaders. Nick Clibbins in P6 down 379 points, the best part of 15 points clear of Pete Newman. Pete Newman, who started off the season strong, has fallen into a bit of a midfield category in the pro category quite recently, but I think he will be trying to revive his fortunes. Ben Bennyworth P8 ahead of Ollie Peters P9 and Sam Smith completing your top 10, with then Adam Morgan P11 on 254 points and a sizable portion of points away from Sam Smith there, the best part of what is 56 points, if my maths does me correctly, and it's the case of Adam Morgan really leading the best of the rest, trying to get back into the top 10, with Liam McNeely only 3 points down. Liam McNeely, of course, having joined us only quite recently, really showing his pace time and time again. Absolutely phenomenal form, and having, I think, if I remember correctly, a 75% win ratio at the moment with regards to every race he's competed in, or somewhere around that. Keith Dempsey P13, 196 points, 3 ahead of Ben Williams, with Maurice Henry in P15, and then outside the top 15, but not to be forgotten about, we have John Higgins at P16, James Clark P17, Bowie Thompson P18, James Warrior P19, and then last but not least in our pro standings, albeit it says that he's in P21, but he's actually in P20, that is William Chadwick. Meanwhile, the complexion of the Pro-Am Championship is a little bit different, with Lee Horne being our outright leader at the moment with an advantage of 111 points, and really right now on a crusade to bring home the championship early before the final round. Now, can he do it, of course? Well, he'll need to try and do it over the remainder of the rounds, and he'll be looking to try and secure things before we head into the season finale. But Nigel Stock, of course, trying to close down that gap. I think Stock just as conscious of the fact that he's got John Burnham very close behind there, only 22 points behind, and the two drivers really neck and neck in terms of their performances, particularly at this point in the season. Craig Cockrell there in P4, 409 points. He is the best part of what is 25 points off of John Burnham, but by no means out the hunt for P3. And then Wayne Douglas a further 30 points behind, and really Wayne Douglas right now trying to break away from the pursuing pack and get himself right into that hunt for the top 3 in the championship. Glenn Humberstone P6 on 344 with an advantage of 16 points over Liam Silkstone. Mark Oliver P8, then Callum Jenkins P9 and Lewis Kent P10, completing that Pro-Am top 10, when you can see Aaron Thompson not too far behind, only 4 points off, George Watson P12, Rob McGregor P13, and Rob McGregor being a very strong driver, and it is the case that we've seen the Scotsman really come alive since he's joined the series. And remember, he's a late joiner in the series, and on 229 points right now, that is the size of the pace that he's bringing to the table, with David Maguire P14, 9 points further down, and Matt Emmons, who recently joined midway through the season on 161 points. Matthew Addy P16 ahead of David Kernahan and Niall Murray, and then Alex Denning completing your Pro-Am Championship. And meanwhile, in the AM standings, whilst we have a few less drivers in the AM category compared to the Pro-Ams and the Pros, they should not be forgotten about. And we see it's David Whitehouse right now running away with the lead for 116 points at advantage to Paul Scott there, 679 to 563. But David Whitehouse in more recent rounds has come up a cropper a little bit with regards to the races and been involved in a couple of nasty incidents, not of his own doing in the majority of the cases, and David Whitehouse just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, with Paul Scott in hot pursuit and trying to close that gap down. Mark Arrowsmith as well, putting in some stellar performances in what is a P3 there in the third place on 425 points, with an advantage that is growing over Tom Delaney and Liam Tack, who are giving pursuit. Tom Delaney really being the other AM driver who's able to participate on a regular basis. And then we can see the rest of our drivers, Liam Tack, Martin Smith, Dustin Lamb, Steve Thompson, Simon Robson, Jay Elliott and Johnny McMullen, only able to join on a part-time basis, and as a result not quite in the hunt for the top 4 or indeed the AM Championship win. Well, we go from our drivers then to the circuit. Where are we? Well, as we said earlier, we are at Circuit Zandvoort, the Grand Prix layout in particular, located in North Holland of the Netherlands. This circuit, of course, a very tricky circuit, a very tight, twisty and fast-flying circuit where it's all about apex speed over the course of its 14 corners. This circuit map provided to us by, of course, simracingwiki.com, and where you can see from the numbers and also just the general layout here, whilst it looks a bit of an odd circuit when we do ride on board with our drivers in qualifying and we give you that lap tour, it is the case that whilst this circuit does look quite compact and you think it's quite a slow circuit, in fact it's quite a fast flying circuit, and particularly in these Mazda MX-5s, it is a circuit to be enjoyed. You can imagine the MX-5 drivers will be throwing the cars around the corners, and particularly over the banked corners of turns 1 and 3, and also the corners which are slightly off camber, such as the run down through turn number 7 all the way through to turn 10, in the fact that those corners are very tricky corners, but you can really chuck the Mazda MX-5 in on the brakes. But that's enough about looking at the circuit diagram. Let's go back to our live pictures as all of our drivers are getting ready right now to get themselves set for what is the qualifying session. And whilst we are waiting, let's take a look at the timings, and we can see it's Liam McNeely right now who really is the man to beat, you would argue, at this point in the championship. Currently the fastest in this final practice session on 154.365, the best part of half a tenth faster than William Chadwick. We're looking here at David Kernahan, who right now making his way on around, currently P10 in this final practice session, P3 in the Pro-Am category. And just to remind you, for those tuning in right now, it is the case that it is one of those situations whereby you see the time and town on the left hand side of your screen. If a driver has a black background against their number, it is the case that they are in the Pro category. If it's an orange background and they've got a white number, it is the case that they are in the Pro-Am category. Alternatively, if you are looking out for our AMs, such as Jay Elliott, who we see here making his way around the privateer, they are the drivers with the blue backgrounds. That's the representation of our AMs. And of course, this broadcast, we say hello to all of you tuning in via one of the free media platforms today, whether it be via the Crest Autosport Twitch, alternatively the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, alternatively the Crest Autosport YouTube channel. Good evening to you all. Unfortunately, I can't see the chats due to some technical limitations, and as a result, I do hope you're all doing well. And well, even though I can't see the chat, be sure to put in the chat and let us know who you were cheering on going into tonight, of course, given the fact that we've got plenty of racing action. We're only 4 minutes away right now, and indeed, all of our drivers absolutely itching to go race, and they've missed this. I've been seeing down in the paddock time and time again a whole multitude of drivers saying that they've really been looking forward to coming back to racing, and whilst many of them did get the opportunity to spend Valentine's Day with their loved ones, and they're very grateful to our league organisers for permitting that and changing up the schedule at short notice, it is also the case that they have been missing their loved vehicles, the virtual vehicles of the MX-5 on the iRacing sim racing platform, and of course iRacing, the Premier Sim Racing platform on the PC. As we can see, Deegan Fairclough here making his way into turns 11 and 12, the very tricky switchback pair of corners, the right into left, as he makes his way out and now down towards 13 and 14, the double right sequence here. It is the case, Fairclough, another one to watch, as he always is. Very fast driver, very determined driver, looking to try and one-up everyone and gain an advantage in his championship campaign. Now, as I'm continuing to check in at this point in time, I'm not seeing anything with regards to any last-minute changes to proceedings and whatnot, so I think we have been given the green light. We will be going as per schedule, as we do see here Deegan Fairclough coming to the end of a lap, and we look around, see Matthew Addy here rolling his way right now down through turn number 3. You can just see the amount of camber on turn number 3 there, and we'll give you the onboard just to give you an idea of perspective as he makes his way around. But this circuit, of course, recently reintroduced to the Formula 1 calendar, albeit we're not quite running on the updated version of the circuit, where it was the case at turns 13 and 14, particularly turn 14, had its banking increased massively to enable Formula 1 cars to go through there as quickly as possible, pretty much flat out. And it is the situation as a result. You won't be seeing a high camber corner at turn 14 in particular. You can imagine it if you so desire, but otherwise we're going with the flatter variant of the corner. And indeed, this circuit, it's a very tricky one, daunting at first, and a circuit which, when you look at it on paper, you probably think to yourself, I'm not going to enjoy this circuit. And I was one of those in the time when I used to do some sim racing of my own. I still do, but it is the case that once you do start making your way around the circuit, you come to love it because there's so much fun to be had here. It's the case that every time you do a lap round Zandvoort, it just rewards you a little bit more. You find that extra attempt every lap you make your way around, or just that little bit of an extra challenge. And indeed, certain drivers who will be looking for a challenge today will be Ben Bennyworth from the D&D Wildcard Racing with Seasong Digital Racing team. Seesaw, I should say, rather than Seasong. He will be trying to get some major points on the board. Ben Bennyworth has not had too much luck in recent events, and he'll be looking to come back on strong tonight as he makes his way into turn number 3. Now, as he rolls the car through turn number 3 right now, you can see there's just a little bit of lock up on the brakes, a bit of smoke coming up. It is the case that as he rolls on through right now, he'll be all set. And indeed, some other drivers as well who will be thinking about what can they do to be able to gain as much of an advantage as humanly possible. It will also be the likes of Adam Morgan, the 60 Motorsport driver here from BTCC, of course. And we do have a number of touring car drivers, such as Adam Morgan, and also when he is able to attend, we do have Bobby Thompson, just named 2 of a number. And it is the case that Adam Morgan, well, he'll be looking to try and get a fantastic result tonight, but will he be able to? One of those drivers who's right up there in the Procast time and time again, but it's never quite gone his way in terms of, there's always been just that little bit of bad luck, or that one little moment that's just cost him that opportunity to seize the win. But can he do it tonight? That is the real question, and we will have to wait and see as he rolls his way around on the circuit right now, looking rather nice there as he comes through turn number 8 and into turns 9 and 10. Only half a minute to go now until we do get underway with the qualifying session, session. And, well, a little bit of trivia with regards to this circuit. Unfortunately, I do not have too much trivia available, but it is the case that this circuit used in a variety of series, including the GT World Challenge. And you'd think, given how tight it is, well, would you really be wanting to run quite large vehicles, including even Formula 1 cars around here? Well, as I said earlier, it is the case that this circuit keeps on giving, and there are overtaking spots around the Zandvoort circuit. You've just got to find that opportunity and get the ultimate pace on a driver, and overtaking here will be difficult. It should be said, it will be difficult. It's not going to be instant overtakes lap on lap down the straight, but it is the case that the driver who's on the offense has to have a significant pace advantage and get the best possible corner exit versus the rival they're hunting down. And it's particularly coming out of turn 14, as we do get the practice session to a close. It is the case a good run out of turn 14 can reward a driver very nicely as they make their way onto the start-finish straight and down towards turn number 1. But with that, it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe some of our drivers are making their way on out of the pits, and it is Liam McNeely who is the first driver to leave the pit lane here, and the driver we are all keeping our eyes on for the simple reason he has been an absolute tour de force so far in every round he's been participating in. And we were wondering if he was going to try and go for a 100% win record. It didn't quite work out, but even though he hasn't been able to achieve 100%, it is the case he has the highest win ratio of anybody within a given class. He, of course, being in the pro class with his blistering pace. And the Fordzilla driver tonight will be looking to at least add one more win to his tally, if not multiple. Just behind, we do see Ollie Peters there from Crest Autosport, making his way right now down and around and heading through and up towards turn number 7 in the long sweeping run. And you can see everybody stacking up here as they come on around. Now, the thing, of course, with regards to this qualifying session, you can imagine we did see, for example, at Monza a couple of rounds ago, it was the case that drivers opt in for as much slipstream as possible in round number 7. Snetterton, we saw a couple of drivers try to utilise the slipstream, but not many. What about here at Zandvoort? Will we be expecting our drivers to form up into queues or traffic lines, and particularly even drivers of the same team or partner teams? It would be the case that we're probably not expecting too much slipstream qualifying here for the simple reason, whilst you can gain in the tow, particularly in the run out turn 14 onto the start finish straight down towards turn 1, and also the run from turn 3 up towards turn 7, where it's flat out through a number of kinks. It is the case that I do think that in the qualifying session you do want clear in front of you for the simple reason, if you do get dirty here, that can just cause the front end of the car to want to understeer. There have been so many sweeping corners here. A little bit of understeer does not help your overall lap time, particularly if you have to lift off the throttle rather than commit fully to the loud pedal. But speaking of going on the loud pedal right now, we do look to Liam McNeely as he makes his way through turn 13. He goes to the final corner, and now let's ride on board for our opening flying lap of this session and take you through what it's like to do a lap here at Circuit Zandvoort. So making his way out to the final corner here, flat out on the throttle and charging up towards turn number 1. Just continue to build up the speed here as much as possible, does McNeely, as he makes his way into the opening corner. Got a bit of traffic up ahead, but he brakes there around the 75 metre mark and tucking into the apex there, getting nice and tight but not touching the apex curb because of how high it is, and accelerating out of the corner and charging up towards turn 2. The right hand here, braking at the end of the entry curb before chucking the car in, making sure to avoid the apex, not to launch the car, and now down into 3 here, aggressively coming down to the corner, using the camber to settle the car, getting on the throttle nice and early on exit, and now charging his way in the long run through 3 up towards 7. As he comes through the right hander of 4, then it's going to be the left hander here of 5 completely flat out, and then it'll be the right hand kink of 6 before getting ready to go into turn 7. A downhill braking zone here over the ridge, and now down on the brakes, looking for his marker on the left hand side, the orange marker on the board, and as he comes on through nice and tight before getting on the throttle early and using the full width of the corner to exit. Now coming through the left hand kink before into turn 8, flicking the car in here. Watch how much apex he takes in order to get the car nicely composed. A little bit of traffic up ahead, really holding him up here. Another Fordzilla machine who moves out of the way, and as he comes through turn number 9, I think that's quite well staged actually. In fact, the 2 Fordzilla drivers, and now McNeely coming up into turn number 10 here, into the second of the right angle corners, and coming through 10 nice and tight and getting back on the throttle early as he accelerates out and now charges down towards turn 11. A short straight here, but still one to be accounted on. The fact you want the best possible top speed down here before breaking in to what is known as the Audi chicane, braking there and coming on in around the 80 metre mark as he goes over the apex of turn 11 and absolutely clatters the car over the apex at 12 there, staying just within track limits, keeping 2 wheels within the white lines of the circuit, and now into turn number 13, a critical corner here as he makes his way on in, coming into the corner at the 50 metre board, and as he accelerates out of the corner, now it's all about going flat out through the final corner here, or as close to flat out as possible, as tight as possible to that apex, and then using the whip to open up the steering wheel, and this will be our opening flying lap of the session. And what will McNeely be able to achieve as he comes across that timing line? And well, I think McNeely, in fact, that has been, no, there is the lap, it comes in, and it is a 54.461, and that is a good pace setter in the fact that right now Lee Holmes the closest, provisionally on what is a 154.62 as our drivers continue to make their way on around, but more lap times coming in, and Adam Delmont jumping right up there, and well, he's making me mark my words. Indeed, multiple drivers are making me mark my words with regards to qualifying without slipstream, because a lot of drivers using the slipstream to their advantage, particularly the iRacing, that blue driver here of Adam Delmont, as he makes his way through the left-hander, and as he comes on through, looking very sharp indeed with a 54.076, and well, that is almost 4 tenths faster than Liam McNeely. I think McNeely's going to have to find a way to try and close that down with some tow and also an even more precise lap. As meanwhile in the Pro-Am category, we see Craig Cockrell here from Simtech Racing Gold, currently the fastest of our Pro-Ams, albeit we've only got 4 of our Pro-Ams set in lap time so far, and we do have what is just around 10 Pro-Am drivers taken to the circuit today, and we see Craig Cockrell here throwing the car into turn number 8 and looking rather smooth as he does so, as he now makes his way down into turn number 9. As he comes on through at this point, and we do see Craig Cockrell here looking quite sharp as he makes his way through the corners. It is the case that Cockrell doing everything he can to be able to improve him further, because he only has right now, well, in fact, he does have a huge advantage. I was going to say he only has an advantage of 6.5 tenths over David Kernahan. That is a huge advantage of 55.1 versus a 55.8. And as they make their way down into turn number 9 and 10, you can see Cockrell really having to work the car hard as he flows on through the corners, and as he makes his way down and around and heads up towards turn number 13. What will it be for the Simtech Racing Gold driver as he heads to the final couple of corners here? Will he be able to get it all nicely compacted and done, or will there be a spin in the tail? We'll have to wait and see as he comes on through here. Looking good so far. Can Cockrell improve? He is the fastest man in Sector 3 out of our 6 sectors, and that was just on the lap just now. As he comes across the timeline, does he improve this time? Well, we'll wait and see as the time board's updated, and it is an improvement. It's up to P3, P4 for the Pro-Am driver, as Nick Clivens jumps up into P3 overall. The iRacing Gold driver, as he makes the Simtech Racing Gold driver there, but he's got what looks to be well, I think we've got some slight issues with regards to our liveries here today, as he makes his way on through right now. Clivens running with the iRacing livery there, despite the fact that it's Simtech Racing Gold, so we might have some slight technical issues with our teams, but still we'll look past those and just focus on the drivers and what they can do. And meanwhile, in the AM class, for those wondering, it's currently David Whitehouse in the absolutely wonderful, and it can never fail to bring a smile to your face, Ducks on livery machine, as he makes his way out of turn number 12 here. He's currently the fastest of the AM class on the 56.3, with Paul Scott being 4 tenths down on him as he makes his way through turn number 13 and comes to the end of another flying lap. We do still have a couple of drivers who've yet to set a lap time, including Lee Horne, Jay Elliott, William Chadwick, Nigel Stock and Rob McGregor, but right now the majority of our field have set lap times, as we do see there. We've just had Rob McGregor go P22, and as David Whitehouse comes across the timeline, can he improve from his previous best? And it does look as though he's been able to improve a little bit. No, in fact, he hasn't been able to improve at all, and he is looking to pursue a better lap. Half the way into the qualifying session right now, and well, the story so far has been Adam Delmont, who really has been the tour de force, and it is the case that Liam McNeely has brought the deficit down from what was 4 tenths a second to just over 1.5 tenths, as we see somebody getting it very wrong there, and that looks to be the number 11 car of Craig Cockrell. What has happened? He was making his way through left-hander, they're just getting on the pedal a bit too soon, and the rear tyre's just not offering the grip and stability, and as a result, well, it's gone very wrong for Craig Cockrell, and now he's going to have to bring himself back up to pace, and well, that is unfortunate for him. Meanwhile, Adam Delmont making his way across that timeline, really the driver in the hot seat with regards to this qualifying session. And Craig Cockrell, we just saw spin, is of course our provisional pole sitter in the Pro class, P4 overall. And we look a little bit further down, we can see that Pete Newman, oh goodness me, and what's happened here? I think Pete Newman's done a Craig Cockrell and essentially lost the car coming out to turn number 12. Let's take a look back. We'll note it was an incident that happened a little bit earlier on, but it does look as though he's got it horrifically wrong at the corner there. We're not going to bring you exactly what happened, but it does look as though Pete Newman has gone for a little bit of a spin there at turn number 12, which is commonplace even in these relatively low power machines. It can happen, and well, we will wait and see what else can come about in this qualifying session as we are entering the final third in a minute's time, and we see Lee Holmes here having to navigate his way alongside what was one of our other drivers there, and the two drivers exchanging positions out on circuit, trying to get themselves into the traffic line as they make them through. That's number 96 car there. He's having a little bit of a squabble with. That's Ben Bennyworth as they make the way through turn number 8 and up into 9. And as they roll the cars on in this time, it is the case that you can see both drivers giving it everything they've got to get into sequence. As Greg Cockrell just emerges from the pit lane, and meanwhile, well, in the AM class, I can tell that Jay Elliott has set a lap time. We've only got 3 AMs taken to the circuit today, and well, Jay Elliott, as he makes his way there through the right-hander of turn number 8 and up into 9. He is our slowest driver who's set a lap time so far, but by no means is it the case that he should be looked down upon, because that may not be a circuit that favours him as much. And of course, our AM drivers may not be as fast as our Primes or our Pros, but they still have that place on the circuit. He gets on the power a little bit too soon there, and I think just losing the rear end through turn number 10, putting the car in a little bit too aggressively, and the rear stepping out. And meanwhile, going from one AM to another, Paul Scott here, currently at P2 in the AM class in this qualifying session, P24 overall, 2 places down on David Whitehouse, the AM leader, as they make the way in towards turn number 13 right now. There's Paul Scott sandwiched between the two of the Simtech racing machines there as he makes his way on around, and as he rolls the car on through at this time, I think it is the case that Paul Scott looking to do everything he can to try and just simply improve and get a little bit closer to Whitehouse. But Whitehouse definitely showing a lot of pace right now as he comes across that timeline. Now, as he makes his way on through here, is it the case that Paul Scott was able to improve? And not this time, no improvement. So as a result, still pressing on. And we are just looking around, and there's Ollie Peters making his way into turn number 3. And we are trying to get the track map up for you, ladies and gentlemen. We are experiencing a little bit of technical issues as Ollie Peters, they're experiencing issues of his own under braking into turn number 3. And as soon as we can get that track map up for you, we definitely will have it there. As our drivers continue to make their way on around. And, well, talking about track map, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. There is the track map as our drivers make their way around in the qualifying session. And right now you can just see how everybody really heavily stacked together around on the circuit and trying to find that optimum place within the whole sequence. As I'm hearing that David Kernahan has had a mother of all moments only moments ago, and well, where is David Kernahan to give you an idea of what has happened? Can't quite find him out on the circuit right now, but we are able to find Glenn Humberstone here, the 88 Tech driver. He makes his way for the right hander there, and as he flows on through turn number 8 and up into 9, it is the case that Glenn Humberstone doing everything good so far in terms of keeping the laps together, but it's not quite the pace he'll want, given that is P21 he's currently sitting in, or P6 in the Pro-Am class, and that is not ideal. As we see there in the rear view picture going very wrong and going for a little spin, it does look as though we had one of our other drivers there getting it wrong, and well, that was very unfortunate in the fact that I'm just trying to see who that was who went for the spin. Can't quite see it right now, but somebody getting very excited coming out to turn number 10 and it not working out. But Glenn Humberstone making his way around, and here is Matt Emmons, the NXTGEN Racing driver, making his way down towards what is turn number 11 into the Audi chicane. Behind him he's got the number 14 driver of what is behind him of Matthew Addy, and of course these two rivals in GT3 Championship that has just concluded, with both of them missing out on what was the AM Championship in the end, so Stefan Gamborg, Rasmussen, but that's a story for another time. You can imagine their rivalry will extend a little bit into tonight's series as they make their way through the final 2 corners here. Matthew Addy getting the draft off of his fellow Matthew as they make their way and around to an end of another lap as they come across that timeline very shortly here. Matthew Addy will be looking to gain in the toe of Matt Emmons as they make their way across, and will this be an improvement for either driver? We can see Addy there peeling out of the way, and neither driver gaining, both of them waiting for another opportunity to improve. As meanwhile, we are seeing that Lee Holmes has in fact got himself ahead of Liam McNeely, and now that is, well, it's going to be a very interesting complexion, as we do see there an improvement from Deegan Fairclough to P4, and well, with that improvement, Deegan Fairclough getting himself right back up there as he makes his way through the Fairclough and Key Racing driver as he comes through turn number 1, but it's still Adam Delmont who's in the pits right now. I don't think Delmont's going to have time to get another lap in unless he pulls out very soon and comes out the pits, but right now it's Adam Delmont who is a tenth faster than anybody else, and Lee Holmes in P2 with a half a tenth advantage over Liam McNeely. That's the top 3, and Deegan Fairclough, who we're looking at P4 ahead of Nick Clibbins right now, and he's only 6 thousandths off of Liam McNeely as Deegan Fairclough. And Fairclough giving it everything he's got to try and get himself a little bit further out the order, and perhaps he can try and get himself onto the front row. As he makes his way down and around this time, I think the thing for Deegan Fairclough, of course, is if he finds himself starting on the second row, he won't mind too much. We know he's very quick off the line, and of course with these races being standing starts, it will be a great opportunity for him as he makes his way just a little bit too wide there coming out of turn number 8, but to be fair, using the runoff area there to rotate the car, that may help him somewhat, or at least not cost him any lap time, because that was a very smooth transition under braking into turn number 9, and Fairclough, I should say, really on the offensive right now, chasing after the number 118 car there, of what is Pete Newman, trying to get that distant toe as he's coming to the end of his current lap, but this is looking at a very sharp and fast lap for Deegan Fairclough as he makes his way on through. We're hearing that William Chadwick has improved to P9 as we continue to watch here the Englishman of Fairclough charging around, and we see Pete Newman in the wall there and backing out the way, and I think deciding to return to the pit lane. I think it's all gone a bit wrong for Pete Newman, and the best he will now achieve is P8 overall, P7 in class. We can see Fairclough coming on through here, and will he be able to improve and potentially get himself onto the front row of the overall grid? And indeed for the pros, he makes his way out the final corner here, and what's it going to be as he comes across the line? As he crosses the timing line there for Fairclough, it is not an improvement. It wasn't enough in the end. He will have one more lap. What about Liam McNeely right now? With Adam Delmont and Lee Holmes both staying in the pit lane, they've decided they've done enough to secure that front row. Will McNeely be able to throw a spanner in the works? He is getting the toe off of the number 88 driver, William Chadwick here, who's really got himself quite far up the order. And now the two Fordzilla teammates are trying to help one another out. Meanwhile, we look from them to the Prime class, and we can see Craig Cockrell coming to the end of his current qualifying lap here. Well, he's currently the provisional pole sitter in the Prime class by an absolutely monstrous margin, the best part of almost half a second, if not in fact a bit more than half a second, versus Lee Horne. I think Craig Cockrell's got this nicely done and set up very well for the opening race. As he comes across the timing line there, Nigel Stock improves to P3 in the Prime class, and that's P18 overall. Craig Cockrell does not improve, but what about McNeely here? That is the big question as he comes on out. Well, before we look to him, we do see Jay Elliott making his way to the end of his qualifying session, and currently on, I believe, in fact, he's on an outlap here, so this is just simply to get himself out there and a little bit more circuit time, perhaps. But then we do look to McNeely here, who is being given the pull along by his teammate, and as they make the way to the timing line here, will it be a sudden jump to the front of the field for McNeely, or will it not be enough? He comes across the timing line. We wait for the lap time to come on in, and what's it going to be? It's pole position for Liam McNeely with a 53.783, and in the end, Team Fordzilla getting their man to the top of the field. And my goodness, well, we didn't think we'd see the day where we would see a 53, but it's happened, and it's in the capable hands of Liam McNeely, and William Chadwick there, I think, will be bought a beer or two after that, with that phenomenal toe helping out McNeely. Meanwhile, Adam Morgan making his way on down at this point, still on a lap as he comes on through. And meanwhile, the very last drives to go on to a lap as he makes his way out of turn number 12 and in towards 13. We are hearing that Matthew Addy has pulled into the pit lane. He was going to come across the timing line. I think in the end, Matthew Addy decided to settle for P6 in the Prime class, P22 overall. But can Adam Morgan here, who's qualifying quite far down and where he typically qualifies, normally finds himself up towards the top 5 or just outside the top 5. But today, P12 currently overall, and that is P11 in class. And as he comes across the timeline, what's the Chichi Motorsport driver going to be able to achieve as he comes across? It is not an improvement from Adam Morgan. He will be starting P12 overall at best, and that is our final qualifying lap. So as a result, Liam McNeely in the end taking pole position overall by a margin of 0.3 of a second, and well, absolutely sensational in terms of that qualifying lap. Would you believe it? But now we are just waiting for this qualifying session to end. Indeed, all of our drivers parked in the pit lane and itching to go racing in very short order, as now we just wait for the countdown to the formation of the grid. Which should happen any moment, ladies and gentlemen. So I was just taking a quick sip of water there. And well, as we are waiting right now, it is the case. This qualifying session definitely throwing in a few surprises, and then some favourites returning to the front of the field, such as McNeely and Adam Delmont. To be fair, not too far behind and really setting the pace of qualifying for a long period of time. But now that is qualifying complete, and we are waiting for the grid. And here is your grid starting to form, ladies and gentlemen. So let's take a look at it. Starting on pole will be Liam McNeely in the end, and alongside him Adam Delmont for the purposes of race number 1. Lee Holmes and Deegan Fairclough on row number 2, with Nick Clibbens and Craig Cockrell on row 3. Craig Cockrell, our pro am pole sitter. Sam Smith and Pete Newman row 4. William Chadwick and John Higgins row 5. And then it is Mikey Doble and Adam Morgan row number 6. Behind them on row number 7, Jamie Dory and Ben Bennyworth with Ben Williams and Lee Horne on row at number 8. Ollie Peters and Nigel Stott row number 9. Rob McGregor and David Kernahan row number 10. And then David Whitehouse, our AM pole position driver in P21, starting off row number 11 with Matthew Addy alongside. Then Glenn Humberstone and Matt Evans on the 12th row. And then behind them, Paul Scott and Mark Oliver on row 13. And then Jay Elliott, the last row drivers, on row number 14, P27. But as we've gone through the grid, we now look to the race here for race number 1, of course, in what is the Next Gen Racing with Crest Autosport Mazda MX-5 Cup in Season 1. This is round number 9, and as all of our drivers are itching to go racing now, it is the case that we are only moments away, waiting for Liam McNeely to take to the grid. He's the last driver, and Paul Scott as well. We wait for them, and we'll Adam Delmont right now, knowing what he's got to do at the start of this race to try and gain that ultimate advantage as they get underway. And we can see everybody set minus 2 of our drivers right now, Paul Scott and Liam McNeely, being waited on. Indeed, plenty of opportunities. It's a long run down towards turn number 1 from a standing start, and everybody will be absolutely itching to try and get the perfect start, as we do see McNeely take to the grid, and now we are waiting to go racing. One red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 here at Zandvoort as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Liam McNeely getting a good start versus Adam Delmont, who tries to go up the inside, but he's not close enough, I think, to venture a move into turn 1. You can see further back as all our drivers scramble into the braking zone here. It is the case that we do have a number of drivers side by side as they make the way through the corner, and particularly Sam Smith, they're gaining an advantage on Pete Newman as they make the way on out and out towards turn number 2. Now as they all flow into turn 2, we can see right at the front here Adam Delmont side by side with Lee Holmes as they come down into turn number 3. Lee Holmes getting on the brakes nice and low, with Dean Fairclough going around the outside as he tries to make a move for P3, but he can't quite find it at the moment. But everybody's made it through so far, no major incidents, and you can see the battle for P3 continues as they make the way all the way up and around, and Dean Fairclough trying to gain an advantage here as they make the way into turn number 7 as they roll them through. Dean Fairclough just getting ahead versus Lee Holmes, and now they go into the braking zone. Pete Newman, meanwhile, having to work hard here to defend against William Chadwick, who's putting that pressure on nice and early in this opening 15-minute race, and as they scramble into turn number 8 right now, it will be the big flick into turn 8, and as they make the way, and you can see Adam Morgan gain a position versus Jamie Dory as he makes his way out the inside into turn number 8, but up ahead a car has been contacted there, and I think that might have been Sam Smith, who just got knocked a bit, as we can see. We've got one driver off, that's Ben Bennyworth going for a spin, and we've had a bit of an incident which I think has upset a number of drivers' races quite considerably and caused a few drivers to gain as a result, as they all make the way out of turn 10 and down towards 11. But meanwhile, William Chadwick here under pressure from John Higgins as they make, Craig Cockrell and John Higgins, I should say, as they make their way down into the corner. You can see John Higgins here holding a little bit of a defensive line versus Pete Newman, who's right on his 6 as they make their way out the corner. Meanwhile, we've got Lee Holmes here, who's had a really bad run out of turn number 12, and as a result, dropping places, as we do see Nick Clibbens here having to work to battle with what is, at this point, Willie Chadwick. There's contact with Chadwick, and they get spun across the road. I think we could be seeing a safety car, because a number of drivers have been connected by a huge moment there, and we are waiting for the confirmation of the safety cars coming out. But until then, after lap number 1, it is Liam McNeely leading ahead. Well, the safety car has been deployed, ladies and gentlemen. I thought it was going to happen, and we do indeed have a safety car, and that safety car has immediately taken to the front of the pack. But my goodness, drama on the opening lap, then coming out the final corner, and a huge incident which I think has upset a number of drivers, and well, in particular, William Chadwick right in the heart of that incident. Let's take a look back at what happened. Was they're making their way down into turn 13. You can see here Chadwick getting on the inside of the Excite racing machine and just turning the number 74 car there, and then from that point onwards everybody was just a passenger. John Higgins getting involved in that, and well, Chadwick in fact getting away with it in terms of once he'd been involved in the incident being out of the way. But that was very unfortunate indeed, and well, where was Nick Clibbens in all this? Well, there was Nick Clibbins, and he was the one who was made contact with by William Chadwick as they made their way through. And well, Clibbins, I think, will be absolutely frustrated at that one, because it was looking very good up until that point, and everybody having to navigate their way on through. As we just return to the live pictures, and we can see that right now is the case that Liam McNeely, after one lap, your race leader ahead of Dean Fairclough in P2. Dean Fairclough gaining 2 places on the opening lap, with Adam Delmont P3 and then Sam Smith P4, and it is Lee Holmes at P5 as they make the way on through. Craig Cockrell, who started off at P6, and he qualified P6 overall, and he is our Pro-Am pole sitter. He is still in P6 and still leading the Pro-Am class, with Mikey Doble just behind him, and Mikey Doble gaining 4 places at the start of this race. And we didn't really talk too much about Mikey Doble in the qualifying session. We didn't see too much of him, but to be fair, he had another one of those quiet qualifying sessions. He qualified P10, but he's already, well, he qualified P11, but he's already up to P7. That shows you the ferocity in which he can gain places very early on. As meanwhile, we do see Jamie Dory here in P8, and then it's Ben Williams P9, and then Lee Horne second place in the Pro-Am class, and currently at P10. John Higgins at P11, as we see him making his way through turn 13. Ollie Peters at P12, then David Kernahan P13, with Mark Oliver P14, and then Adam Morgan at P15, Matthew Addy P16, Rob McGregor P17, Glenn Humberstone P18, Matt Evans P19, and then we do have Nigel Stock P20 as the safety car stays on out for the time being. And then we do have David Whitehouse here, P21, the leader of the AM class, and he's had a good start as David Whitehouse, and he'll be looking to try and nail it in terms of the restart, because right behind him is a P2 man in the AM class, and that is Paul Scott. And then we do have Ben Bennyworth, who's rejoined the pack in P23, Pete Newman P24, then we have Nick Clemens P25, William Chadwick P26, and catching up to the field after the incident at turn 13 on lap number 1, and then Jay Elliott, the last of our drivers, and our AM driver in P27, getting himself back up to speed right now and catching up to the field after having a pit stop to do repair works to the car. Indeed, the safety car staying out for the time being, for the simple reason that everyone is expected to catch up to the pack before they go racing once again. And we see the safety car making its way on through as we ride on board the gearbox here. And of course, the safety car, I think today being driven, unless I'm very much mistaken, by, I think it is Martin Brinkworth behind the wheel of the safety car. And as he makes his way on around right now, it is the situation whereby you can see here as he comes roaring on through turn number 8. Of course, our Mazda MX-5 drivers will be, well, some of our drivers will be wanting the safety car to stay out a bit longer because it will cost them some race time. Others will be expecting the safety car to go a little bit faster and coming in as soon as possible. But it's a pick of your poison, really. And of course, if you're Liam McNeely, you'll want that safety car to stay out as long as possible because it will bite into the available race time. Whereas if you're someone like Deegan Fairclough, for example, you'll want that safety car to come in as soon as possible because you want to go racing. But then again, we do know that McNeely does love a good amount of racing. So as a result, he may also want the safety car to peel away because he'll just want to get that restart nailed and disappear off up the road. But indeed, it has been quite a scene on the opening lap here, and as our drivers make the way down and around, and this will be to the end of what is their third tour of the circuit. It is the case that David Kernahan here in P13, P3 in the Pro-Am class. We're looking to try and do his utmost to be able to close up to what is Lee Horne and Craig Cockrell up the road. As meanwhile, we do see here the safety car making its way on around once again. And I do think the safety car is coming on in, which means we are going racing once more. As we do see Liam McNeely here getting the restart nailed, and we're just bolting from the stable here, with Deegan Fairclough being dropped to 8 tenths back as we are racing once again with just over 8.5 minutes of racing to go. So it's Liam McNeely still leading, with Deegan Fairclough in P2 goes very deep into the opening corner and behind, as we're heading at Glenn Humberstone, and also Matt Evans have passed Rob McGregor a bit further down. It is the case that everybody right now serpentining their way in a line around through the opening sequence of corners here, and will the safety car coming in quite quickly, and Liam McNeely keeping the pace of the race start very high indeed and not giving everybody really an opportunity to close it up, as we see Adam Morgan here making his way past what was Mark Oliver there up into P14, and of course that's for overall position. Battling with the Pro-Ams here is the pro driver of Adam Morgan. He will not be wanting to battling with them for too long. He wants to go further up the field and gain points, and as they make their way up and around into turn number 6 right now, you can see the rest of the pack being dropped quite heavily here, and I think Rob McGregor really struggling with a wounded car right now, the Scotsman, as he makes his way down into turn number 7. You can see sliding there under braking on the inside line, and it is the case that we're going to be seeing Nigel Stock trying to go all the way around the outside. This is very brave for Nigel Stock because you don't normally overtake around the outside at turn number 7, but in these MX-5s you can, and now it's the case that Matt Evans also trying to come through here versus McGregor, but I think it's the case that Scott's going to park it on the apex, and as a result it's not going to be as easy as he would hope as they make their way down. But definitely it does look as though McGregor McGregor really struggling with a part of the car right now, as we've got a bit of an incident further down, and that's Glenn Humberstone, who's been turned. And I think there was a bit of contact with another driver there as he gets himself back onto the road. But right now Matt Evans finds his way in the drag race past Rob McGregor down into the Audi chicane into turn 11, and behind that is David Whitehouse also trying to come on through. They're going to be side by side as they make their way down and around through turn number 12. Both drivers trying to get the throttle as best as possible, and David Whitehouse gains another position and now makes his way into turn number 13. And the next man to try and scout Rob McGregor is Pete Newman as they make their way down through 13 and up towards 14. As we look from them to further up the order, I can tell you that Liam McNeely, whilst he got the restart absolutely spot on, he is now being caught by Deegan Fairclough as they make their way through turn number 1 once again here. And behind, Adam Delmont is not too far behind, and we ride on board briefly here with Adam Delmont to give you an idea. He's chasing after the top two as he clatters the apex curve there of turn number 2 and makes his way into 3 here and right on the heels of Deegan Fairclough. But you've got to have such a good exit out of each and every corner compared to your adversary to be able to gain, and you can see the two of them pretty much equal in terms of overall pace as they now make their way up towards turn number 7. Both of them, of course, in the draft of another car. Delmont getting a double draft effectively off of McNeely and Fairclough. Fairclough just getting the draft off of McNeely as they roll on down to turn 7, and you can see just how right on the edge they are in terms of getting back on the throttle as soon as possible and rolling the cars up towards turn number 8. Now as they come into the braking zone here for the right hand flick, it is the case. You can see just attacking that apex curve mercilessly, but not going too high on it, otherwise they'll launch the car into the stratosphere, relative comparison. But as they come through, you can see how Fairclough really now under a bit of pressure and goes a little bit deep into 9, gets 10 nailed very well, and Delmont not able to capitalise. But these guys getting closer and closer together as McNeely's able to inch open the gap a little bit more up front. But as we look from them to a bit further down the order, I can tell you that Craig Cockrell has just been passed by Mikey Doble, but I don't think he'll complain too much about that, the Simtech Racing Gold driver, given the fact that he is battling with the Pro Championship leader, and he is a Pro himself, so he's not really battling for points. He's battling for pride at this point as they make their way through turn number 12, and as they roll them through the left-hander and up towards 13 and 14, both are looking very smooth so far. As meanwhile, a little bit behind, I can tell you that it is the case that at the head of this pack, we do have Ben Williams right at the front, and Jamie Dory giving hot pursuit here, chasing after his fellow Pro driver as they make their way through the right hander of 13 and up towards 14 they go once again. But now things have settled down quite a bit after what was a little bit of a rocky restart, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1, it is the case that Jamie Dory are looking for that opportunity. Further back we can see David Kernahan here, the HBH Racing driver. He's on the inside of Lee Horne down to turn 1. He's going to fully commit to this. This is for P2 in the Prime class, and he goes for the classic pass into turn 1, but you can see that as he gets on the throttle, he's not allowed to extend the corner exit. A bit of contact Lee Horne, a little bit of door to door, both drivers trying to contest as much space as possible. Kernahan holds the inside into 2, and as a result Lee Horne backs off, and now he looks the inside into 3, but Lee Horne then not able to come back, and David Kernahan with a nice sweet set of moves there gains the position and now looks to try and pull away and go hunting after Craig Cockrell, who's the best part of what is 5 seconds up the road. And well, I think right now these two will be battling for P2 in the Brown class, and that'll be the story of their race. With 4 minutes to go, plus the final lap as they come down to turn number 7. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it's still David Whitehouse who's leading, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, with Paul Scott P24, that's P2 in the AM class, and Jay Elliott P3 out of our 3 AM drivers. But right now, really intensifying it is in the Primes and also in the Pros, as our drivers are continuing to make their way around. 3.5 minutes remaining here in race number 1, and indeed the intensity of the racing only gaining as time goes on. But as we look for our drivers here, all sweeping their way through, we've got an incident. It's Craig Cockrell's at a spin and he rejoins onto the circuit, and my goodness me, Jamie Dory being connected, and John Higgins and Lee Horne as well, and with that multiple drivers into the wall. My goodness, and well, with that in mind, it is the case, I think we could be looking at another, well, it's not going to be another safety car, but that is a disaster for multiple drivers, and Craig Cockrell has been very fortunate, and David Kernahan, it was going so well for after passing Lee Horne, and now it's all gone horribly wrong, as meanwhile I'm hearing that William Chadwick has also had a moment. And well, there's William Chadwick. He's had a moment at turn number 12, and now as a result he regains pace once again, but it has not gone his way, as I'm hearing that the safety car has stayed in. It was not an obstruction of the circuit, but my goodness, what a huge incident, and well, we'll be bringing you that back very shortly, and here it is. So Craig Cockrell, who we're watching here, now as he comes into turn number 10, he makes his way on through into the corner. I think the rear is just going to step out on the apex curb. He does take a bit too much apexing on the power, and now as he tries to get himself back up to speed, well, he's got the whole pack coming through, and he just starts to roll the car forward, and then from that point onwards, it is just bedlam with regards to everybody trying to come on through and trying to avoid further carnage. Cockrell, to be fair, gets himself back up to speed, but I do think the stewards are not going to be too happy with Cockrell, and I think there might be a very harsh penalty coming after the race, depending on how it's reported. But right now, we return to live pictures, and we show you that Liam McNeely leading, but only by 2 attempts a second as he makes his way down into turn number 9. Now as he rolls them through the right hander, he's got Dean Fairclough still behind, and also Adam Delmont. And as they make the way on through, I can also tell you, in terms of battles intensifying, Mark Oliver now P2 in the Pro-Am class, P10 as you can see on the timing sheet on the left hand side of your screen. And it is the case that Mark Oliver trying to close up to take on Cockrell for the win of the Pro-Am class in this race. But right now McNeely having to go defensive here down into the Audi chicane. He's going to squeeze Fairclough as much as possible and take away his right to the apex as they make the way through 12. And remember, there's going to be one more lap after this based on their relative lap time right now as they make the way down towards 13. You can see Fairclough all over the back of McNeely, literally attached to him like a magnet as they make the way down through 13 and into 14. And I think Adam Delmont at this point just rubbing his hands together and saying, keep it up lads, take one other out and I'll take the win off of you if you don't mind. Of course, Delmont will not want to become too complacent, because if they do not end up taking one other out, he's got to find a way past the win himself. As you can see there, Fairclough literally behind as they go on to the final lap. The white flag is out, and it's McNeely defending versus Fairclough as they come down into the corner. Fairclough's going to try and go round the outside here. It's going to be a very bold move, and well, he's given the space, but he hasn't quite got the traction on exit to be able to go for it. But I say that, now he has got the grunt up into 2, but Fairclough goes a little bit deep, and this is where Delmont will be looking to capitalise, but he's going to have to go round the outside and use the camber of the road plus a cutback to get the momentum in the long run to 7. The top 3 here inseparable, and it's all coming down to the final corners as they make the way on through, and as they come charging down towards turn number 7 right now, they are as they were as they roll up and around, and as they come into the braking zone, as we're hearing Lee Horne's had another moment on circuit. You can see Fairclough goes to the move on the inside versus McNeely into 7. McNeely brings the car on through. It's a little bit of a fake space in the fact that Fairclough's actually cost himself time, and now it's Delmont all over the back as they make the way into turn number 9. They come into the right into left combination here where overtaking is possible, but it needs a lunge, and as they roll them through the right, now it's the left-hander that awaits them. And as they make the way in, you can see Deacon Fairclough now going defensive versus Delmont. He knows that Delmont's coming on strong. And as they roll on out of the corner here with Mikey Doble and Sam Smith battling in the rear of your picture, this is the battle for P4 that's ongoing as well. And you see Sam Smith and Mikey Doble both contest that position just outside the podium, with Doble on the inside here in the run down towards the Audi chicane. They come into turn number 11. It's going to be Doble on the inside. Sam Smith holds on the outside, tries to cut in, but he's not able to. And it's Doble gets the better run, and Lee Holmes tucks in behind as well. But meanwhile, as our leaders make the way through the penultimate corner, I think he's going to have done it, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way through the final corner. It's been close, and whilst the safety car bins to some of the race time, you can't deny it's been furious, because Liam McNeely, as he goes in the long drag race to the finish line, is going to be your winner in race number 1 ahead of Deegan Fairclough and Adam Delmont, and it will be Mikey Doble who brings home P4 across the line ahead of Sam Smith and Lee Holmes, with then what is Ben Williams coming home P7. Then it will be Adam Morgan in P8, and our winner in the Pro-Am category will be Craig Cockrell, albeit with a little bit of cloud hanging over his head with regards to the incident earlier on. Mark Oliver takes home P10, that's P2 in the Pro-Am class, and Matthew Addy in a deserved P3 in the Pro-Am class, coming up through the field and gaining 11 places along the way. Pete Newman comes home P12, it'll then be Nick Clemens P13, Matt Evans P14, Ben Bennyworth P15, and Paul Scott in the end, our winner in the AM class, bringing it home ahead of David Whitehouse. And well, Paul Scott getting the job done as David Whitehouse P2 and P17 overall, William Chadwick P18, Glenn Humberstone P19, Jamie Dory P20, Jay Elliott coming home P3 in the AM class, P21 overall, Rob McGregor, John Higgins, Lee Horne, Nigel Stott, Ollie Peters and David Kernahan completing our order for this opening race. But my goodness, what a fantastic race from start to finish. There was drama, there was action, there were battles left, right and centre, and I think this man of Adam Delmont will now know that he can potentially snatch away the win, and he will be starting P10 in the partial reverse grid for race number 2 ahead of Fairclough and McNeely. And well, another driver, a real hero of the show for race number 1, although he didn't get too much time on the camera, Mark Oliver from 88 Tech with Lambs Motorsports, gaining 16 places over the course of the race and finishing P10. That's P2 in the Pro class. A fantastic drive from Mark Oliver as he brings it in to the pits. But with that, let's bring you those race results once again, ladies and gentlemen. So in the end, your winner by 0.3 of a second, Deegan Fairclough, not Deegan Fairclough, my apologies. Your winner by 0.3 of a second over Deegan Fairclough, Liam McNeely in the end, with Deegan Fairclough coming home P2 and Adam Delman just behind, well under a tenth there, behind Deegan Fairclough, competing the overall podium and the pro podium. Mikey Doble P4 with Sam Smith P5 and a fierce contest for the first position outside of the podium. Lee Holmes P6, Ben Williams P7, and then it was Adam Morgan P8, the GG Motorsport driver, gaining a good number of places over the course of the race. 4 places gained in the end and keeping his head out of trouble. Craig Cockrell at P9, our Pro-Am winner, ahead of Mark Oliver, P2 in the Pro-Am, that's P10 overall, and Matthew Eddy completing the Pro-Am podium in P11, with Pete Newman at P12 and Nick Clemens P13. Matt Emmons, the Pro-Am driver there, P14, Ben Bennyworth P15, and then our Am winner, Paul Scott, P16 overall, ahead of David Whitehouse, William Chadwick there in P18, and as we continue to go down that result sheet, we can see Glenn Humberstone P19, Jamie Dory completing the top 20, and then Jay Elliott P21, our Am driver, ahead of Rob McGregor and John Higgins, the last 5 drivers to finish on the lead lap, with Nigel Stott, Lee Horne, David Kernan and Ollie Peters completing our finishing order for race number 1. Well, my goodness, it was an absolutely intense opening race. Indeed, there were a good number of incidents, some great battles as well, but in the end it was the situation where all of our drivers had to go through tooth and nail to get the result they wanted. But that is of course what it all takes at Circuit Zandvoort, and we are here in round number 9 in the Next Gen Racing MX-5 Cup, as brought to you in collaboration with Crest Autosport and Bobby Thompson Motorsport. And with race number 1 complete, we'll be back in approximately 5 to 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, for the build up to race number 2. You won't want to miss it. We'll see you very shortly. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the build-up to race number 2 here in round 9 of the Next Gen Racing MX-5 Cup, as brought to you in association with Crest Autosport and Bobby Thompson Motorsport. And we're here at Circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands for what has proven so far to be a rather dramatic, if not battle-fueled and intense round of racing. But we've only had one round of, we've only had one race out of our 3. We've still got 2 more races to go. And race number 2, again, will be another 15-minute sprint. But the difference is this time we'll have a partial top 12 reverse grid. So it is the case our race winner, the driver who finished P1 at the end of race 1, will be starting P12, and the driver all the way down to P12 will be flipped over with our P12 finisher in race number 1 starting on pole for race number 2. And outside that, if a driver finished P13 in race number 1, well, you guessed it, they'll be starting at P13 in race number 2. There's no prizes for finishing P13, and it is the case we are only now 3 minutes away from going racing. In the commentary box, of course, you have myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141. We don't have Alex Everett with us tonight, but what I can tell you is that the spirit of Alex Everett is with us in the fact that he's the one who provided us with all of the broadcasting tech and all of the slide site. Indeed, he's put in a lot of effort, and I really am just at the helm and trying to steer things to the finish line. And well, indeed, missing Alex, but it's the case he'll be back in round number 10. But with all that in mind, right now in what is this practice session, our drivers really just getting into some final little bits of time before they make their way to the grid. It is the case, I think, for a number of drivers, they'll have realised from what was race number 1, it's just how much damage a single instant can cause. Not in terms of how much damage to a respective MX-5, but the cost. But instead, with regards to how much of an impact it can have on the race time, firstly, if the safety car is called. We did have 3 laps under the safety car. And in the end, that did cost us approximately somewhere in the region of about 4.5 minutes of racing. But also on top of that, given the fact that an instant does occur up the road and how tight this circuit is, well, that one instant can lead to a domino effect. We saw 6 cars coming together, coming out of turn number 10. I can tell you a number of drivers already not too pleased with regards to that. I think some reports will be going into the stewards post-race. But that's why we do have a stewarding team, of course, to be giving certain drivers who do not follow the rules or do something a little bit naughty a rap on the knuckles, as the penalties can be doled out appropriately, because at the end of the day we want the best possible race in the next gen racing, and the best possible racing is close, intense, but it's also a fair racing. We don't want to see any naughty shenanigans. A little bit of rubbing and bumping we don't mind too much, a little bit of door rubbing, that is the case, much like you see in BTCC, so that's British Touring Car Championship. You'll see some door rubbing, but when it goes a bit beyond that, then the stewards do have to intervene. We don't want, for example, cases like what happened with Jason Plato and Matt Neal, particularly in the 90s, where it's about which driver's going to throw the first punch, and heaven forbid we will never see that in next gen racing, whether it be virtual or in real life. But enough talking about and ruminating on what can happen when it gets a little bit too heated in motorsport. So one driver right now who's really been as cool as a cucumber so far, and that is Mikey Doble, who really came home at P4 in the end in race number 1, and that's P4 overall and P4 in class. So he'll be starting in what is P10 this time, well, sorry, P9 this time out, if I can do my math correctly, for race number 2. But he just seems to find a way to gain places, and well, Mikey Doble, the one driver who's always looking just to manage his championship. He's leading the Pro Championship at the moment. He doesn't need to win every race. He's got a good advantage, and he'll want to keep on carrying that advantage forward race after race, round after round, to bring home that championship title in the Pro Championship. But we'll wait and see how it plays out for him. The number 88 car, as he makes his way out of the final quarter to complete his final practice lap, as everybody else right now really just parked to the pits and waited to go. And one driver I think will be absolutely fuming and looking to improve upon his result in race number 1, David Kernahan, who had a lot of pace, but in the end an instant took it all the way for the HBH driver, the HBH racing driver, and now he'll be looking to have an instant free race in race number 2 and try to bring home a solid result and perhaps even the win in the Pro-Am class. But we will wait and see, because I'm sure the likes of Lee Horne and company will have something to say about that. As now we are going to be taken to the grid very shortly, and let's get you that grid. So Ben Mediworth starts on pole with a reverse grid with Adam Delmont alongside. It is then Sam Smith and Adam Morgan on row number 2 with Ollie Peters and Rob McGregor, our highest placed Pro-Am driver, starting on pole for the Pro-Am class in place number 6. Then it's John Higgins and Nigel Stock on the 4th row with David Whitehouse, the AM driver, there in what was the 5th row. And I think we might have a slight mistake with our grid, ladies and gents, but I do apologise. It does seem to be a little bit out of order here. We are just going to try and fix that for you, because that's not quite right. It is the case that we should be seeing a bit of a different grid I think it may be the situation whereby as we take another look, there we go, it is Pete Newman started on pole with Matthew Addy alongside him, and Mark Oliver and Craig Cockrell on the second row, Adam Morgan and Ben Williams on row number 3, with Lee Holmes and Sam Smith on row 4, Mikey Doble and Adam Delmont on row number 5, with Deegan Fairclough and Liam McNeely with the reverse grid on row number 6, and then outside of our top 6 rows, it will be Nick Clemens and Matt Evans on the 7th row, Ben Bennyworth and Paul Scott on row number 8, but we have to look away from that, ladies and gentlemen, because it is time for us to go racing, and we'll be going away very shortly indeed, as it is going to be 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 2 as our drivers get underway, and well, as they all go charging down towards turn number 1 with a green flag waving there. It is the case that Pete Newman getting a very solid start with Mark Oliver already trying to go up the inside as they roar on down and into the opening corner here. You can see Matthew Addy also on the offensive as he tries to get on past where's Adam Morgan, and as they roll through, we've already got a car turn now. I think that's Adam Morgan, and there's an instant as we do see one of the Fordzilla cars able to rally across its way out of the way, and well, we can see that has been a huge incident. Well, if that's not going to trigger a safety car, I don't know what will at the end, but multiple tries involved in a huge crash, and well, the circuit is obstructed, but meanwhile we can see it is the case. Well, we do have Pete Newman making his way on, Pete Newman, Mark Oliver, who's leading this race as they make the way down and around and in towards turn number 7. The safety car is yet to be called, and as they make the way down into the corner, it is the case. Well, Mark Oliver is on a charge and the safety car has just left the pit, so it is the case now as they make the way through. I think they can race up to what is the end of the lap as they all make their way down into turn number 8, and as they come on through here, it is the case that we can see what is Matthew Addy there trying to hold on versus Ben Williams is going to go all the way around the outside here to turn number 9 as they roll up into turn number 10. It is the case, Ben Williams going up the inside here of Matthew Addy, battling through the left-hander at turn number 10, and they've yet to catch the safety car, so this is up. They're going racing, and as they make the way down towards turn number 11, down towards the Audi chicane, it is Williams ahead of Matthew Addy. Remember, these two battling within 2 different classes, Ben Williams the pro driver, Addy the AM driver, and meanwhile up front we can see Mark Oliver here battling with Pete Newman, as it is the rise of the Pro-Ams who really are getting aggressive right now and trying to gain as many places as possible. As we see, it is a huge concertina effect as they all roll on down 3 wide here into turn number 13. Deegan Fairclough right in the middle there. What was Adam Delmont and Craig Cockrell, and well, in the end the 3 of them navigated, but not about a bit of a banging scrape, and Deegan Fairclough in the end braving it through the middle, the Moses manoeuvre intact, and Mikey Doble P7 here as he rolls on through as well. As they come down to the start finish line, this will be where they do catch the safety car, and they will be expected to fall into formation, and everybody here trying to get into a cheeky position. You can see they're all trying to just get themselves a little bit nose ahead to say, well, I actually had that position going in, but in the end our drivers do have to settle down. But my goodness, what an absolutely crazy start to proceedings, and well, let's just try and dissect exactly what happened right at the start, because that was an absolute nightmare of a start of the race for so many drivers. And well, let's see it from Jamie Dory's perspective. So making his way through the corner, Jamie Dory was on the wide line into turn number 1, and already the incident has occurred, and then he got a little bit on the power too early, and well, he got turned in contact with another driver. But meanwhile, if we try to look at it from the exterior cameras here and try and dissect exactly what's happened from Liam McNeely's perspective, you see McNeely here now, he has to take evasive action. He gets a tap on the rear for the Excite Racing Blue Machine and into the wall. But it does look as though how it all started, I think Adam Morgan was involved in an incident where I think that was Lee Holmes, unless I'm mistaken. The 2 of them initially involved in the incident, and then it all seemed to kick off from there. So indeed here, well, so it was not. It's very tricky to pull this one apart, I must admit, ladies and gentlemen. It's multiple incidents on top of one another very early on. We are just going to take another look back a bit further on exactly what happened. So here we go, Adam Morgan lost the rear end of the car, and that, I think, kicked off a little bit of the proceedings, but no, so it's 2 separate incidents. So Adam Morgan having the moment there and losing the car was not the trigger for the bigger incident, which involved Jamie Dory. And I think Jamie Dory really at the epicenter, not unfortunately blame onto the Next Gen Racing Orange driver, but he was definitely there right at the start of the incident kicking off, and the driver he came together with kicked it all off with him. And my goodness, the attrition rate in this race number 2 already very high as we do look back to those live pictures right now. And will the safety car making its way on around and through? I think they're going to have a couple more laps under the safety car. Well, the trackside marshals having to clear away the debris, make sure they're not picking up any bunches as they come through the exit of turn number 1. But indeed, right now, Mark Oliver, well, he's nailed the start very well. Leading is the Pro-Am driver as he makes his way behind the safety car to the end of this current lap. And we just see the safety car there, I believe, staying on out, not peeling in, as we do have a number of drivers who've just left the pits and are going to be trying to catch up to the pack, as we see Pete Newman P2, and he is the leader of the Pro class right now, Ben Williams P3, and then we do have Matthew Addy, the Pro-Am driver, P4, second place in the Pro-Am class currently, with Sam Smith at P5, and then we do have Deegan Fairclough P6, with Mikey Doble behind P7, and Mikey Doble gaining 2 places at the start, but Deegan Fairclough gaining more places, gaining 5 at the start, and then Adam Delmont, well, it has been another smooth start for the Excite iRacing Blue driver as he makes his way on around right now in safety car trim, and he's currently P8 with Craig Cockrell P9 right now. It's P3 in the Pro-Am class, and Craig Cockrell losing out the most of everybody at the start of the race. Very unfortunate start for Craig Cockrell, and well, he's got a lot to do now to pick up the pieces once again, as meanwhile William Chadwick P10 as he makes his way out of the corner there, and well, William Chadwick having a rather simple start, and he'll be looking to try and make his way up the order over the course when we do get the resumption. Ben Bennyworth P11, and then our highest placed AM driver at the moment, P12, that is Paul Scott, just following in behind as they make their way up towards turn at number 7. And then Lee Holmes P13, as he just briefly has a little bit of latency there, and then we do have Liam McNeely at P14 with what is Adam Morgan P15. Adam Morgan, of course, being involved in some initial contact, but not being in the trigger point of the major incident, and I believe in the end it was Adam Morgan and Lee Holmes who briefly came together and had a little bit of a moment after Adam Morgan lost it into turn 1. The rear just simply came loose on him, and then Nick Clibbons at P16 with Jamie Dory behind him P17, really at the epicentre of everything that happened at turn number 1 to trigger the safety car. Lee Horne P18, Jay Elliott P19, second place in the AM class right now. Ollie Peters P20, and well, Ollie Peters has just not had any luck so far here at Zandvoort. Can he turn it around when we do go racing once again? Madman's P21, and then it is Nigel Stock who is P22 and still trying to catch up, and then we do have David Whitehouse P23 here. The Duxon machine also having a nightmarish day, or the Seesaw with Digital Racing, the Seesaw Digital Racing with D&D Wildcard Racing driver, our AM champion leader, where he's just not having a good day at the office here. John Higgins P24, and it's Glenn Humberstone P25 and Rob McGregor P26. And I believe David Kernahan has retired from the race due to the amount of damage that's been accumulated on the car. But the safety car is in, ladies and gentlemen. We are going racing once again, and it is the case as we resume the racing with what is 8 minutes to go. It's immediately Pete Newman on the offensive here versus Mark Oliver as they make their way to turn 1, and Mark Oliver not fighting this one too hard. Ben Williams under pressure from Matthew Addy, but Deegan Fairclough immediately on the offensive and passing Sam Smith. There's a little bit of a door rub as they come out of 1 and they'll make their way up into 2 here. But it's Fairclough on the inside, a bit of contact there, a bit of a muscle being thrown out, a bit of an elbow, and that has not Sam Smith a bit further wide as we see Mikey Doble tuck it in and just simply avoiding any incidents and gaining another position by keeping it short and sweet as they make their way out of 3, and now the long run down towards 7 as they come charged on down. You can see Sam Smith here in P7, and well behind him Adam Delmont looking for the move here versus the driver who's been knocked out of the way and trying to get himself back up to speed with the SimTech Racing red driver Sam Smith. As you can see, it's Adam Delmont who looks up the inside, but it's just a cheeky look on the inside. It's not really a fully committed move, and it's the case they make their way through as they were and up into turn number 8. As they make the way for the right hand flick here, it is the case you can see just how Delmont is closing massively, and looking down the inside, Delmont goes for a huge send into the corner, and Sam Smith and Delmont come together. Now Delmont will argue that Sam Smith turned into him. Smith will argue that Delmont came from far too back, that Sam Smith sent up into the air there, and well, I think his race has gone from good to bad to a nightmare as he rejoins down in P12. But now Adam Delmont has William Chadwick who's trying to cover through as they make the way down in towards turn number 11 here, and you can see as they scramble down, Sam Smith battling with Liam McNeely, and McNeely making his way on through, and I can imagine in the cockpit of that Mazda MX-5 of Sam Smith right now, the level of frustration must be building up to a cataclysmic state as he makes his way on down and around into 13. But as he comes down, I can tell you that Ben Williams, meanwhile, in P3, well, he has now got Deegan Fairclough who's trying to close up as rapidly as possible, as meanwhile Adam Delmont has had an off, I can tell you. And where's Adam Delmont? He's gone rally crossing off the road here, and as a result Adam Delmont now has lost it all out, and that's the start again. As meanwhile further up the road, well, you can see here as they make the way down, I think we've got a car almost into the wall there, and that is Liam McNeely battling with Lee Holmes, and McNeely goes for the 2-for-1 special, and then we get a brief bit of latency there as he goes down the inside of what is Lee Holmes as they come through the corner, and as they roll up through, Sam Smith as well being overtaken there. Lee Holmes coming through. It is the case, well, Lee Holmes has not out this one yet, and the 88 Tech Racing driver looking to try and close back up to McNeely as they make their way through turn number 3 and head up towards 4. But my goodness, are the elbows coming out here, and we've only got 5.5 minutes to go. So you can imagine a number of drivers really want to gain as much as possible here, get as many points. But as they come rolling on through turns 5 into 6, once again, it is Lee Holmes really right now who's under pressure to try and close down McNeely here, or just try and get himself further up into the top 10 and get some critical points. As he rolls on through this time, Pete Newman, the leader right now, just breaking away and off into the distance. 1.3 seconds clear of Mark Oliver. In fact, 1.4 seconds clear. I think everybody now settling down into a little bit of a rhythm as we ride on board here with Nick Clibbons, who is in that hot pursuit of Adam Morgan. Now as he makes his way down into turn number 10, you see Adam Morgan now on a bit of a tighter line on the entry into turn number 10 versus what is there Sam Smith as they make the way in out, but Nick Clibbons goes a bit wide. As they make the way in the long charge down towards the Audi chicane here, no change at the moment, everybody staying firm and staying distant as they roll into the braking zone. And as they come down, you can see all the drivers are literally trying to carry as much speed over the apex of 11 so they can attack the braking zone at turn number 12. You want to carry so much speed here into the apexes at Zandvoort. It is all about apex speed management. And as they roll them through this time, we do look at the exterior pictures. We see, oh goodness me, something massive has happened here at what is the exit of turn 13 into 14. A number of drivers have been involved with David Whitehouse right in the mix of it, but it does mean that Pete Newman, who continues to lead here by a sizable margin, well, there's Mikey Doble, who's gained immensely from what's happened. But what exactly has occurred there? This is moments ago, so this is Deegan Fairclough battling with one of the Excite Racing drivers, and as they make the way through, just a nose in there, and it looks like the Excite machine turned on in, and as Fairclough just rolling on around, will taking another car with him. That was Matthew Addy, as Ben Williams was the Excite Racing driver in the contact with Deegan Fairclough, and well, I think the stewards are going to have their hands very full come the end of tonight. I mean, this is only race 2, and well, we have seen some huge incidents, but right now I think Mikey Doble will be grinning from ear to ear and thinking, well, at least that wasn't me, because right now in P2 in class, P3 overall, it is looking to be another good day at the office in race number 2 and just keeping it out of trouble. After P4 in race number 1, he's now in P2 and well on course to get some more much needed points, as meanwhile we can see William Chadwick here, who is P3 in the pro class right now, P5 overall, pressing on here in pursuit of what is Craig Cockrell, as behind we do see Lee Holmes here continuing to attack after Ben Bennyworth as they roll them through and up into turn number 10. Lee Holmes really putting pressure on Bennyworth, who goes a little bit deep there into turn number 10. Really struggling is Bennyworth now as they're coming towards the end of the 15-minute sprint here. And as they make their way down, I think this might be a sign of things to come in the feature, the 25-minute feature. As Lee Holmes looks to the inside, he's going to have to send it if he's going to commit all the way, and he goes for it here. But Bennyworth is given the space on the outside to inside line. There is contact between the two of them. And I think Lee Holmes there trying to essentially muscle his way on through, and Bennyworth countering out by saying, no, I'm going to put my car in the place where there is going to be some contact. And as they make the way on through, it is the case that Bennyworth holds the position, but he's got Sam Smith coming on through behind, and Sam Smith goes up the inside into 14. And as they roll on through the right-hander right now, you can see Adam Morgan tucked in behind as well and following through. It is the case the battles are kicking off, as meanwhile William Chadwick moves up to P4, and it is a side-by-side down into turn 1. It's the exchange of position there, but more importantly, as we look a bit further back, Adam Morgan here battling with Sam Smith into turn 1. Smith goes deeper on the brakes, trying to hold the outside, using the camber of the road to push the car through the corner. 2 minutes to go. They'll have one more lap after this. This is the penultimate lap, and as they tuck into turn number 2, it is the case that Adam Morgan tucks in behind Sam Smith once again. Now as they roll down into turn number 3 at this point, you can imagine how the complexion of the situation is. You see Sam Smith there goes a bit wider. Adam Morgan is given a knock as they make the way down towards turn number 7, and Adam Morgan pulls back across immediately to cover off where's Ben Bennyworth, who tries to capitalise. There's no one for him. Bennyworth is knocked onto the runoff area there, and well, my goodness, the elbows are coming out left, right and centre. I think there's a few too many elbows as they make the way down through 7 and head up towards 8 right now, and Ben Bennyworth here under a lot of pressure from Wesley Holmes, who looks at the inside into turn 8. I think it's going to be a traditional move into the corner, and as they roll them through here, well, Bennyworth's going to have to go very deep and hope he can find that outside grip, and in the end he goes overly deep, and Adam Delmont now is closed up to this battle, as meanwhile Nick Clibbons gains the position as they roll on through the corner, as they come down and around. And well, my apologies when I said earlier it was Ben Bennyworth involved in the contact with what was Deacon Fairclough. In fact, it was, I think, Nick Clivens who was involved in that contact. We can see Clivens here just pressing on all the same as he makes his way down towards turn number 11 and gains the position of Bennyworth. But meanwhile, as they roll on through, I can tell you that right now our race leader is coming on to his final lap very shortly, and that is Pete Newman here with an advantage of 6 seconds over Mark Oliver, who has got Mikey Doble in hot pursuit. And where it is the case that right now Mikey Doble will just gain a track position, he wouldn't gain an actual place with the fact that Mark Oliver is our Pro-Am leader. And I think it is the case that Doble just wants Mark Oliver out the way, because behind we've got William Chadwick and Liam McNeely, the two Fordzilla drives on the charge here. But meanwhile, further back you can see Craig Cockrell tucked in behind, and it's Sam Smith, and we've got in between Adam Morgan and also Sam Smith. Well, that was Lee Holmes, and there's more contact between the two drivers again, and Sam Smith and Adam Morgan just seem to not be able to separate from one another, as Lee Holmes, literally, I think he was thinking, well, I'm going to go through the middle and make it 3 wide, and now he's backed out of it. I think he's going to be thinking to himself, actually, that was a better idea, because he's just gained 2 places for the price of 1 and avoided being in a freeway crunch as they make their way out of turn 3 and down towards turn number 7. And my goodness, is Lee Holmes thinking right now he might want to buy himself a lottery ticket after this one, because that has worked out to his advantage massively as he makes his way up into turn number 7. Now, as he rolls on through at this point, I think the thing for Lee Holmes is he's just got to keep it together a little bit longer with Nick Clemens tucked in behind and trying to also gain an advantage as they make their way on through. But as they come down into turn number 8 here, no change at this current moment in time. But as they make their way into 9, meanwhile, we can see a little bit further back here, Lee Horne will be chased by what is Paul Scott and also chasing after Jamie Dory. But meanwhile, we look from them to up the road and to our leaders right now. We can see Pete Newman here in a very comfortable lead with Mikey Doble 6.5 seconds down from him. And well, he's got Chadwick and Liam McNeely closing up behind. As we see Mark Oliver there defending versus Craig Cockrell, and goes very deep does Mark Oliver, and it's been a flawless race so far, but with a mistake right there, and that is going to give Craig Cockrell the lead of the Pro-Am class with only 2 corners to go. And well, I think Mark Oliver there will be kicking himself for that one, but I tell you one driver who won't be kicking for himself as he makes his way to the timing line. It will be Pete Newman, who is your winner overall and in the Pro class in race number 2, ahead of Mikey Doble, who finishes P2 in the end, just ahead of Liam McNeely and William Chadwick as they cross the line. And then it will be Craig Cockrell who takes the checkered flag for the Pro-Am class ahead of Mark Oliver, and then it will be Lee Holmes P7, Nick Clemens P8, Ben Bennyworth P9, and then it will be Adam Delmont P10 ahead of Sam Smith P11, Jamie Dory P12, Lee Horne P13, and then Paul Scott in the end will bring home P1 in the AM class, P14 overall. A solid drive from Paul Scott, making it another great result to talk about, as Deacon Fairclough P15, Adam Morgan P16, Ollie Peters P17, Matthew Addy P18, Nigel Stock in the end P19 as he makes a bit of a disintegration there with the tyre barrier, and then Ben Williams wraps up our top 20. But my goodness, a race which I think many of our drivers will be wishing that it didn't end up the way it did, particularly with the number of contacts and incidents. As you see Jay Elliott there coming home, P21, second place in the AM class, and then David Whitehouse taking P26, that's third in the AM class, John Higgins P22, Matt Evans P23, Glenn Humberstone in the end making his way through the final corner right now, and will be coming through in P24 very shortly as he comes across that timing line. And then it will be Rob McGregor, the last driver to finish on the lead lap, with David Whitehouse finishing a lap down effectively. He was lapped just before the finish line by Pete Newman, respecting the blue flags, which is fair enough. And well, we do see here it is the case that Rob McGregor will be the last driver to finish the lead lap, and it was David Kernahan, our only retirement, who was not able to finish the race in race number 2. As he comes across the timing line, Rob McGregor doing a little bit of a dance as he comes across here, and I think just venting a little bit of frustration and looking ahead to the next race, which will be in a short while from now, race number 3, the 25-minute race. But before we get there, let's take a look at those race results from race number 2. Now, of course, remember, these results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and I do think, as I say, the stewards are going to have their hands full tonight. It is the case Pete Newman in the end taking the win in the Pro class and overall 6.6 seconds clear ahead of Mikey Doble, and Liam McNeely in the end completing the podium. William Chadwick coming home P4, and then Craig Cockrell P5 overall, hit our winner in the Pro-Am class, pipping Mark Oliver to the line in the end, with Mark Oliver making that mistake into turn number 11 on the final lap when defending versus Cockrell, and he'll be kicking himself for that, there's no doubt. The two of them finishing 4 tenths apart. Lee Holmes P7 with Nick Clevens P8, Ben Bennyworth P9, Adam Delmont P10, Sam Smith P11, Jamie Dory P12, and then Lee Horne completes our Pro-Am podium with P13, ahead of Paul Scott, our Am winner in P14, Deegan Fairclough in the end at P15, ahead of Adam Morgan, Ollie Peters and Matthew Addy, who's in P18. And then going a bit further down, Nigel Stott P19, Ben Williams P20, Jay Elliott coming home P2 in the AM class, P21 overall, John Higgins P22, Matt Emmons P23, Glenn Humberstone P24, Rob McGregor, the last driver to finish on the lead lap P25, David Whitehouse P26 overall, a lap down coming home P3 in the AM class, and then the only driver not to finish the race, David Kernahan, having to retire due to damage picked up on the opening incident. But my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what an absolutely crazy second race indeed. If it's a case that races 1 and 2 are anything to go by, you will not want to miss race number 3. But hopefully the craziness will be in great overtakes and some furious battling rather than some major incidents being in between that as well. But we'll have to wait and see, as we will be back in a short while, in approximately 5 to 10 minutes time, for the build up to race number 3, the 25-minute feature. You won't want to miss it. But until then, don't go anywhere. It is the case, a bit more racing is only moments away. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to race number 3 of round 9 of the Next Gen Racing MX-5 Cup Season 1, as brought to you, in collaboration with Crest Autosport and Bobby Thompson at Motorsport. And my goodness, we have had an absolutely sensational opening 2 races for good reasons and some not so good. Perhaps a good number of incidents, but also some fantastic side-by-side action around the Dutch circuit located in the north of Holland. And now we are waiting for the build-up for race number 3, where we are expected to see some very extended racing action over the course of 25 minutes. It will be the case that our drivers will not be expected to make a pit stop in this final race of the day, but it will be the case at the same time they will have to manage those tyres and also manage those brakes. And we have seen a number of drivers already seemingly falling off after approximately 12 to 14 minutes of racing. And well, you can imagine when we add an extra 10 minutes onto the overall race time distance, well, those 10 minutes could really make the difference between those drivers who are able to protect the tyres and those who push a little bit too hard early on. And sometimes finding a compromise will be key. But whilst we have got just under 4 minutes, let's just bring up that schedule once again to give you an idea of where we are in our overall calendar. We can see that right now we are in round number 9, of course, and well, our preceding rounds are Silverstone, Knockhill and the Red Bull Ring, Montreal, Daytona, Bathurst, and also Monza and Snetterton. And well, after this round, we will have 3 more rounds remaining, including Interlagos next time out. That will be in Brazil, before heading back to the United States for Long Beach, and then our season finale in round number 12, the single race, the 2-hour race at the Nürburgring VLN layout, of course, the legendary circuit, indeed a very different challenge from all of the circuits prior. And it's almost as if you could argue the opening 11 rounds are a big build-up and a big taster of what's to come in round number 12, but it's not quite the same, given the fact that each round is weighted very fairly and equally in terms of overall points to be gained, and every point that can be gained round on round is absolutely critical. But with our schedule in mind, and indeed plenty more racing to come, it is the case that right now, with our drivers absolutely salivating at the prospect of going racing once again, with only now 3 minutes or so of this qualifying session to go, we can see William Chadwick here making his way down and around through turn number 2 and into 3 as he comes rolling on through and decides to actually drift and loses the rear end a little bit there, perhaps just trying to drift his way through turn number 3 using the banking. Didn't quite work out, but it is the case that Adam Delmont, meanwhile, coming down into turn number 11 and rolling into 12 very shortly. And as he comes on through, it is the case the iRacing blue driver here. Well, he's had 2 very tricky races, and he'll be hoping to try and end tonight on a high. Indeed, many of our drivers will be, particularly those who have been involved in incidents, they won't want another incident to plague their race in race number 3. Now, do keep in mind as well, race number 3 will see the full reverse grid. It will be the case that we'll not be seeing a partial. It will be the full reverse grid. And well, all of our drivers, minus David Kernahan, classifying come the end of race number 2. So I think it may be the case that Kernahan may be starting from the back still if they are able to get the car repaired and out onto the grid in time. But otherwise, it will be the case if he is absent, then we will be seeing our grid practically reversed as we are just waiting now for the countdown. And well, hope you've all been enjoying it so far. And whilst we can't see the chat, if you are in the chat right now, do let me know what's been your favourite moment of the night so far, or you're tuning in via Twitch, Facebook, or alternatively YouTube, and what you're expecting for race number 3, and who do you think could potentially come away with the overall win. I think right now, to be honest with you, if I had to place a prediction, as he peels into the pits, he jumps to the pits, it was, as we just try and get him back, Mikey Doble. I think he could be one of the favourites here. We do know he is the master of the craft of a subtle race, and he doesn't want to be involved in any contacts, for instance. He just wants to stay clear of the situations. But as we can see, they're just parked up right now. And indeed, everybody really parked up and waited to go racing. Although we do see Nick Clivens here rolling on down and around to the end of another practice lap. And is the case, the Simtech Racing Gold driver here will be looking to try and finish on a high as he makes his way into the right-hander turn number 1. But right now, as he comes on through here with just half a minute to go, it is the case both side drivers in the pit lane and waiting to go racing. And indeed, everybody itching. They've got an itch to scratch, and it is that want to go racing one more time. And one man who will know all about that, because he has had no luck so far, it would seem, is Rob McGregor, the Scot, who had a disastrous race number 1. His race number 2 wasn't too far from a repeat of race number 1, and it is the case the Elite Access driver will now be looking. He'll be starting towards the front of the field, given the reverse grid, as he goes a bit wide there out of 13 and brings the car back together, albeit with a little bit of bounce to the rear suspension. It'll be the case that the Elite Access driver will now be looking to do everything he can to finish on a high today and get some critical points in race number 3. We are now over the 10-minute practice time, so we will be seeing very shortly the grid being formed, and when we do, we will bring you, of course, the layout of that grid. So with all of our drivers taken to the grid then, let's bring you the grid. It is David Whitehouse who starts on pole with Rob McGregor alongside him. The AM alongside the Pro-Am, and it's Glenn Humberstone and Matt Evans, the 2 Pro-Am drivers on row number 2. John Higgins and Jay Elliott on row number 3, with Ben Williams and Nigel Stock on row 4, Matthew Addy and Ollie Peters row number 5, Adam Morgan and Deegan Fairclough row number 6. Behind them, it will be the case that we do have on row number 7, Paul Scott and Lee Horne, with Paul Scott having a great performance in race number 2, Jamie Dorey and Sam Smith on row number 8, Adam Delmont and Ben Bennyworth row 9, Nick Clivens and Lee Holmes completing our top 20, Mark Oliver and Craig Cockrell on the 11th row, with William Chadwick and Liam McNeely on the 12th row, and then it'll be Mikey Doble and Pete Newman on our 13th and final row, with Pete Newman of course being our winner in race number 2. But now we are waiting for the green flag to go racing here, ladies and gentlemen, as we do look to the grid once again here, and it will be the case that it will be David Whitehouse who started on pole here. Well, the AM driver does enjoy these starts, and now we're waiting for that countdown. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. Let's lights out and away we go for race number 3 of round number 9 as all our drivers get underway once more for Zandvoort, and as they go charging down into turn number 1 on this opening lap, you can see David Whitehouse immediately pulling into the centre of the road here to go defensive as they come charge on down into the opening corner, and as they make the way on through, it is the case many a driver here looking to try and gain early on, as we do have quite a few battles building in the midfield there as they all come soldiering through. No major incidents this time as our drivers come through turn 1 and into 2, but this is where everyone concertines together. And as they all come through, it does look as though Deegan Fairclough there gaining the position of Jay Elliott as they come through turn number 3 and making a lot of ground early on is Deegan Fairclough and trying to go on and try and charge up the field before the rest of the pros come charging on through. But meanwhile, a little bit further back, Ollie Peters losing the place at the start, but battling right now side by side with Jay Elliott as they come up through turn number 5 and into 6, and you can see the long train of MX-5s as they come roaring on through and down into turn number 7. Now as they roll down into the corner at this point, a little bit further back there, you can see Jamie Dorey in a bit of a side-by-side with Paul Scott, who goes very wide and rally crosses off the road. But fortunately for him, he will have a lot of run area to use with that gravel. And meanwhile, I think we have got a little bit of contact away. We've got quite a bit of smoke, and that is Rob McGregor, I think, and also David Whitehouse involved in a major incident. And oh goodness me, the 2 drivers who were right up front. Well, I think there has been a bit of an umbrage between the 2 of them. We will take a look back at that very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, it is the case that John Higgins is now your race leader by a margin of 1.3 seconds over Glenn Humberstone. And as they make the way down towards turn number 11, it is the case. Well, I think both drivers there will be absolutely infuriated with what's happened. But meanwhile, you can see Deegan Fairclough going up the inside of Matt Evans, but he'll go around the outside now into turn number 12. And Matt Evans not fighting this one. 9. He doesn't need to battle with the pro driver. He is a prime driver at the end of the day as they make the way down towards turn number 13. And as they come through, you can see Adam Morgan also going for the move there versus the prime as they roll on through and to the end of the lap. So after the opening lap then, it is John Higgins who is leading at the moment by 1.2 seconds ahead of Glenn Humberstone in P2. Deegan Fairclough P3, followed by Adam Morgan P4, Matt Evans P5, the P2 in the Pro-Am class ahead of Ollie Peters P6. Then we have Jay Elliott in P7 right now, the leader of the AM class. They make their way down into turn number 1. You can see that Liam McNeely looking for the move. He's going to sliver up on the inside. As meanwhile, a little bit further back there, we can see William Chadwick making the move versus what is, I believe, that is Lee Holmes. But Lee Holmes has still got his nose ahead as they roll on through and up into 2, and Lee Holmes gets ahead, and we can see Chadwick backing out there as they make the one through. I think we've got a driver off and into the wall, and that's Glenn Humberstone who's hit the wall there. Oh, what is the turn number 3? And he jumps to the pit, and we've got even more contact. We've got a major incident up there, well, a bit down the road now. That's Ollie Peters and Matt Evans involved. My goodness, we've had a whole variety of incidents, and well, what's happened to Ollie Peters? We're going to see here as the drivers came through. So there's Glenn Humberstone in contact with Deegan Fairclough, and then Ollie Peters just tapping the rear Matt Evans and backing off the front, and Deegan Fairclough there just not recognising that Ollie Peters was going to slow down and instead just bulldozing his way on through like a bull in a china shop. And well, to be fair, I think Ollie Peters at the same time will think to himself back in that one, should I have just pulled onto the grass and waited? Because it did look as though he was slowing down to try and give the place back. But what I can tell you with that in mind, and of course that's just our observations, we don't know the true story, only the drivers know that story. It is the case right now. Ollie Peters has lost out massively. P12 in the pro class now, P20 overall, as Deegan Fairclough soldiering on after having the contact with Glenn Humberstone, and now chasing after Liam McNeely, who's already up into P2, and Liam McNeely having gained 22 places at the start of this race, and Liam McNeely just staying out of trouble, and really trouble is finding everyone else but himself, as meanwhile we've got 4 wide going down. Oh goodness me, we had going 4 wide. It is the case that we have got into the wall there. That is, I think that's Pete. No, that's Pete Newman off circuit with damage and a wheel missing on the car. My goodness, it is not a happy day for a lot of racers here, as I think it was Jay Elliott who was turned into the wall, and well, that is an absolute disaster for Jay Elliott, who was going very comfortably in the lead of the AM class, but to go 4 wide down towards turn number 13, well, I think that's pushing the track limits and then some. The circuit's wide enough for 4 cars, but oh goodness me. But meanwhile, up front we can see here it is the case that John Heen's just rolling away with things. And meanwhile, Liam McNeely under pressure from Deegan Fairclough as they come through turn number 3. Well, it has been the case whilst we have had an unexpected week's break from the series. It is by no means our drivers have not got that fever to go racing. They are absolutely thirsty for racing action. And even in race number 3, there's nothing to temper the steel as they make the way up and around and into turn number 7 once again as they roll them through. And Liam McNeely leading this race at the moment with regards to the battle for P2, with John Heaton's being our overall leader. You can see him off in the distance there, and Deegan Fairclough really on the 6 right now of McNeely as they roll on through the right-hander of turn number 8, and right on the limit these two. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, I can tell you that William Chadwick chasing after Lee Horne right now. I think Lee Horne at this point will be thinking to himself, I don't need to do anything special. Well, you can see here Mikey Doble going for it on the inside move into turn number 9 versus what was Ben Bennyworth there. He's going to try and swing it all the way around the outside, but he can't do it in the end, and instead holds firm as Ben Bennyworth defends his position here, which he has the right to. Both of them battling for track position in the pro class, and as they make their way down towards turn number 11, and meanwhile Lee Horne, well, we can see there as they come rolling on down, well, Liam McNeely making the move in. Also, that was William Chadwick making the move in the end, and as they make their way through turn 11, Mikey Doble holding the outside here versus Craig Cocker. He's going to have it, but it is the case. Mikey Doble losing out time versus Ben Bennyworth up in front of him. We can see Adam Morgan here looking for the move versus Craig Cocker, and I think Cocker will be cognizant of the fact the GT Motorsport driver trying to come on through, as we do see there Mark Oliver getting a little bit wrong on exit and losing a bit of momentum as Adam Morgan finally clears his way into P10 overall, but not without an absolutely Herculean effort as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And you can see once again Craig Cocker here, he wants Adam Morgan between himself and Mark Oliver, but in the end I think he's going to yield and not push his luck as they make their way through turn number 1. Adam Morgan keeps the door open slightly as they make their way on through. As they come rolling on down towards turn number 2 right now, a little bit further back, I can tell you that Adam Delmont here has just passed Nigel. Well, my apologies, that is Paul Scott. He passed Nigel Stock a bit earlier on, but right now Adam Delmont trying to find his way up the order here. He's gained 4 places so far, but it is one of those situations where I think for Adam Delmont, it is a race where he's got to build this one up gradually now, given everything that has happened. And I can tell you that we've had no retirement so far, but we do have, I think in fact we may have the retirement of Pete Newman and Glenn Humberstone based on my timing screens, but right now we still do have the majority of our drivers racing, as we do see here Ollie Peters trying to find his way past what is Matt Evans as they make their way into turn number 7, but it's not looking smooth right now for Ollie Peters after the contact with Matt Evans earlier on. I think this time he'll be looking to try and find a pass somewhere where he's not going to make that contact. Not that he meant it intentionally, it's just one of those unfortunate things, and he did show as much respect as he possibly could in trying to wait up, but it didn't quite work out as he makes his way into turn number 9 once more. But with only 7 minutes of this race complete, of course, this race being 25 minutes, we're by no means at the halfway point right now. You can see a bit further back there. It is the case that we do have Sam Smith trying to recover into this race, but we look from the back of the field, and I can confirm that Pete Newman and Glenn Humberstone have retired from this race. It is the case that we do look up the road to P2, the battle for P2 that continues, and we ride on board the gearbox here of Liam McNeely, who is being pursued by Dean Fairclough as they make their way out to the final corner and down towards turn 1 once more. Now, because Dean Fairclough is going to have a huge overspeed here as they make their way in towards the corner. He's going to get very close. In fact, we do get a face full of a Mazda MX-5 grille there as Dean Fairclough just simply tucks in behind and doesn't go for the move. They do not want to fight. And I think for Dean Fairclough, he wants McNeely to pull him up to John Higgins, who right now, to be fair, John Higgins is lapping approximately half a second slower a lap by comparison. So if the trend was to continue, they will be with John Higgins within the next 5 to 6 laps. And I think that's what Liam McNeely is hoping right now. Dean Fairclough is obliging, which is the two of them are not to fight. But meanwhile, speaking of fighting, Mikey Doble just going for the move on the inside versus Ben Bennyworth. But now it's a long drag race and Bennyworth getting the better exit out of 3. It's a long run from 3 to 7. And they're going to be side by side all the way through it. And Doble, again, I think he will yield if he finds Bennyworth fully alongside into the corner. He does indeed. And you can see Adam Morgan there tucking in behind as well as they all keep it civil for the time in, and particularly Mikey Doble, who is employing that craft of I don't need to win the races to win the championship, I just need a consistent string of performances. As we do see the running wide, that's Ben Bennyworth. He rejoins on the outside, but with dirt on his tyres, he will let Adam Morgan through. And I think also we are going to be seeing Craig Cochrane try and go for a move, but I think Bennyworth in the end tucks back in, and Craig Cochrane in fact backs out there, recognising there's no need to fight. And as they make the way through turn number 12 and also turn number 10 and down towards 11 and 12, I should say, getting all my numbers wrong, it is the case that Bennyworth right now really having to work hard in order to try and stay with Adam Morgan and Mikey Doble. He's got the pace, but I think he's just under a lot of pressure right now. And to be fair, when you're racing in a pro class this intense, you can understand why, but by no means should it take away from the phenomenal driving of the D&D Wildcard Racing with Seesaw Digital Racing driver as he makes his way into turn number 13 once more. A bit further back, however, Matthew Addy here on the charge, trying to hunt down what is Paul Scott, and he wants to get past Paul Scott as quickly as possible because the AM leader right now is costing him a little bit of time, with Nigel Stock creeping up behind him, and Nigel Stock, of course, in the Pram class as well, as they both make their way around to complete another lap and come to the end of the opening 10 minutes as they make the way on down towards turn number 1. I think it's going to be Matthew Addy who goes for the short and sweet move here down into turn number 1. It's going to be a quick move up the inside, and I think he will have this one very nicely done, and I do not foresee Paul Scott battling it too hard. But I say that Paul Scott going quite deep and actually using the raise of the road there, the camber of the road, to give himself the slingshot round, but in the end I think he does realise to back out. There's no need to push it too hard as they make their way through 2 and up into 3. But we look from them to a bit further down the road. I can tell you that Jay Elliott has just been passed by Sam Smith, as we can see them here occupying the central of the camera. And as they make the way through turn number 2, Jay Elliott just keeping his head down. He is the best part of a minute ahead of David Whitehouse. As meanwhile, as they make the way on through, I do believe, in fact, that Liam McNeely, I should say, has been passed by Dean Fairclough. And I think it's the case Liam McNeely has had a bit of an off. Now, where has this happened? So it's coming down out of 7. I think McNeely's gone a little bit too soon on the throttle, and indeed just a little bit of runoff there has cost him the time. He gives Fairclough the space, and they resume the racing as we return to the live pitches. But of course, with these little moments, it is buying our race leader John Higgins just a bit more time. They are reeling him in, to be fair. But of course, now the challenge is with Fairclough ahead. When he was behind McNeely, I think he felt as though he had the pace and he didn't have to worry too much about being the lead car here and needing to make an overtake. But you can see McNeely behind. Now, will McNeely take the same approach as Fairclough, which is just to tuck him behind and not go for moves? We'll have to wait and see, because look who's in P4, and just behind him, that is Nick Clibbins there, and he's caught up to the pair of them. And the Syntec Racing Gold driver here will be looking to try and make a move as well as they make their way down towards turn number 1. They come charging on down at this point, and as they make their way into the braking zone, well, it is the case. I think Nick Clibbins would love an opportunity to seize a podium here in a very tightly contested podium as they make their way through turn number 1, but we will have to wait and see how he navigates this. As meanwhile, a bit further down the road, I can tell you that Adam Morgan right now all over the back of Mikey Doble as we ride on board here with the Chipsy Motorsport driver, and as he tries to go on the offensive, you can see Lee Horne there, the Pro-Am driver just ahead of Mikey Doble, struggling for exit speed out to turn number 1 as they all clatter their way over the apex, and Lee Horne really not comfortable right now in that position. I think Lee Horne may decide to yield shortly because he is battling right now against drivers who are not in his class, and he's losing himself time, and well, he's putting himself at risk of a little bit of contact. As you can see, Mikey Doble actually having to tap the brakes on through 5, which is where you should be tapping the brakes on. I think Doble was very conscious. He doesn't want to see his race suddenly come to an abrupt halt as they make their way down. Lee Horne goes a bit deep. Mikey Doble comes on through, and Adam Morgan's going to try and get his nose into the space. It's going to be very close as they make their way down into turn number 8, and as they go on through, you can see Lee Horne on the outside. Adam Morgan, to be fair, doesn't go as aggressively as he could, but he doesn't here. Lee Horne runs a little bit wide, and in the end, well, he's going to lose position, and look who's trying to come on through against Lee Horne now in his own class, and that is Craig Cockrell. He's going to go on the outside versus Lee Horne. This is the battle for the Pro-Am lead as they make their way into turn number 10, but Lee Horne goes defensive on the inside and takes all the pace out of Craig Cockrell, parking on apex, which he has the right to do. And now, as they make their way down towards turn number 11, Craig Cockrell trying to find a way on back as they roll them down into the braking zone for the Audi chicane. Now, as they come in here, this is where Craig Cockrell's got to nail the exit. It was what he'll want to do. He'll want to give himself the best possible run, but he goes a bit wide there. And as a result, actually cost himself quite a significant period of time in terms of being able to get back onto full throttle. I think they're just being a bit too adventurous, and well, he'll take note of that and look to go on the offensive once again come the next lap. Lee Horne, however, not looking happy, and we're now entering that point of the race, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we talked about it earlier, albeit briefly, about tyre wear and also brake wear, and it is the case that after 15 minutes, you can imagine these Mazda MX-5s, as we see Mikey Doble here going defensive versus Adam Morgan for P7 in class and overall. You can imagine after 15 minutes, the tyres on these cars become quite heavily worn, and also the brakes really start to fade to a degree, and braking becomes a little bit more difficult. We add on 10 minutes to the race, and particularly with that tyre wear, you can imagine our drivers who have been pushing it hard on the tyre compound, they are going to start to feel the pinch, and those tyres will start to fall off a cliff, and that's where the lap times can really disintegrate. As we see here, Mikey Doble holding off Adam Morgan for the time being. I think Mikey Doble will be saving a lot of compound to the final 5 minutes of the race to try and go on the charge, and trying to make Adam Morgan take the life out of his tyres at the moment as they make their way down into turn number 7. Now, as they roll on through, a bit further down the road, I can tell you that Ollie Peters chasing after one Matt Evans right now has got Sam Smith, who's in his class, with him on the offensive here, and the Crest Autosport driver under a bit of pressure as they make their way up towards turn number 7 here, although they are lying astern at this point in time, and I do think that Sam Smith is going to tuck in behind. No change between these guys, because they're battling for P11 in the Pro class, and that is P18 overall, as Sam Smith gets it very wrong. They just clip the apex curve, and the car bounced down and brings itself back up to speed, but you can see Jay, well, that is not Jay Elliott there, I believe that's, well, that is Ben Williams, who just tucks in behind, who is a lap down, and I think just trying to respect the blue flags and not get involved in any incidents. But meanwhile, speaking of a driver who is being reeled in, here is John Higgins, your race leader, but his advantage now only 1 second compared to his pursuers of Deegan Fairclough and Liam McNeely. And well, we said it was going to take a number of laps here, and he has had some extra time with Fairclough and McNeely having a little bit of a squabble, but it is the case that right now, as he goes on to another lap with just under 10 minutes to go plus the final lap of this race, John Higgins is now less than a second ahead of Fairclough and McNeely, and he has been reeled in, and he is most likely expecting that he will be under assault within the next 2 to 3 laps. If the trend of pace continues, what can John Higgins do to bring home a win that he'll think he'll very much deserve? As meanwhile, looking a bit further back, we can see that Lee Horne here trying to break away from Adam Delmont and Ben Bennyworth, who are battling for P10 overall. That's P9 in the Pro class, and was Adam Delmont goes defensive into 2, and Bennyworth tries to go around the outside to inside. A very difficult move to take. We can see Craig Cockrell trying to go around the outside of Bennyworth, but he's not going to find it, and as they make their way out of 3 and up towards 7 they roll. It is the case that right now Bennyworth under a lot of pressure from the Pro-Am driver, I think, who's getting frustrated. He wants to attack Lee Horne, and Bennyworth's not giving him the opportunity to. It's going to be Cockrell who holds the inside here into 7, and well, they'll both contest it. They're not battling one another, they're battling the right to go battling after the guy up the road who's in their class, but in return they do have to battle one another at this point. And as they make the way on through, we are hearing that Nick Clivens has had an off, and I think he's just rejoining what's happened to the driver who was in P4 overall and in the Pro class. We just simply went a bit wide out of 8, and the rear of the car snapped loose, and he, oh goodness me, just hit the wall, and that damage is not going to do the rear right suspension any good. And I think Clemens could be driving a wounded car from this point onwards as we return to our live pictures. But we look from them to the battle now between what is the leaders overall, and that is Higgins versus Fairclough versus McNeely. They've all come together come the end of this lap. The gap has come down dramatically, and as they make the way on through right now, you can see behind them that is Rob McGregor, who has just not had any luck today whatsoever. It's never gone right for Rob McGregor, and I think Zandvoort's going to one of those ones he chalks up to the wind in the end, in terms of he will not want to think about it after tonight as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Once again, the race leaders, you can see Higgins going defensive. Meanwhile, McNeely's going to be made to go around the outside, and Fairclough on the inside. McNeely's going to go all the way round, and my goodness, if he pulls this off, it's going to be a colossal move. He's got one. Now, can he make it count? He's going to be on the outside for turn 2, and Higgins defends on the inside versus Fairclough. He backs out from fighting it completely, and as they make the way down into turn number 3, McNeely there with a phenomenal double move over the sequence of 2 corners, and well, Higgins, to be fair, gave him the space to play with it, and well, McNeely rode it on the edge and pulled it off. And Fairclough right now, I think, will be a little bit frustrated. He couldn't have tried to come on through, and instead he's tucked in behind as they make the way into turn 7, but he goes full send into the right-hander. I think Higgins saw it coming and decided to yield here. I think Higgins may recognise that with the pace that both Fairclough and McNeely are showing, that he'd rather just take the P3 at this point. Now that one's made it through, he may as well let the other one go. And well, he's got Lee Holmes, who's only 3.2 seconds down the road. And for Clemens, this could be, well, for Higgins, this could be a huge result as he makes his way into turn number 10 as they come rolling through the left-hander. And meanwhile, well, we see Lee Holmes making his way through turn number 10, and a bit further down the road, where I can tell you that leading the Pro-Am class right now is Lee Horne, and behind it is Mark Oliver, who's currently P2, and I do believe that Craig Cockrell has been involved in a bit of an incident, and we can see what happened. So this was only moments ago, and Craig Cockrell just went a little bit wide down the exit of 3 and into the wall, and that is what has cost Craig Cockrell massively in terms of damage to the car and multiple places, because he was right with Lee Horne, and in the end that explains the story, and that is not a story he would have wanted. But meanwhile, we look back up towards our leaders here with just under 6 minutes to go, and well, now the gloves are coming off as they all literally run onto the track limits there to almost go into the pit lane. Confused on our timing screen briefly, it is going to be another 3 wide into turn 1, but John Higgins backs out. They're making it a 2 wide between McNeely and Fairclough, but he looks to cut back down on the inside through turn 1 now as they drag race their way out to 1 and up into 2. You can see Fairclough there making sure to ascertain and hold on to that P2 position, but it's so close between these 3. They are neck and neck non-stop here, and I think McNeely right now will feel comfortable. He is leading this race. I think he'll feel as though he's got enough to be able to hold off the fast charging Fairclough, but to be fair, we do know that Fairclough has a huge amount of tenacity with finding places to make overtakes, and McNeely will be all too aware of that, and Higgins will just watch on right now, keeping in mind that Lee Holmes is 4.3 seconds down the road and is not gaining a rate of knots. So as a result, these guys have got some time to play with, and I think Higgins will want to stay in this battle to try and bring home the win if he can. It'll be a P3 at least, so long as he stays out of trouble, but of course that's the key thing. Can they all avoid the trouble? As you see Fairclough looking for the lunge on the inside, he goes in, and it's the case that we see McNeely goes deep as a result, faked into a move, and as they make their way into 10, McNeely holds on for the time being, but meanwhile Higgins just waits. He's waiting there like a hawk, watching every mistake the 2 in front make in terms of battling one another. And well, as they come charging down towards what is the Audi chicane, turns 11 and 12, it is the case that McNeely still holds firm for now as they roll into the right-hander, and as they come on through the left now at 12, you can see Higgins closing up, but they make the way on through once again, and this is where it all kicks off. We ride on board with John Higgins, the Hills Motorsport driver, as he makes his way into the right-hander of 13, and as he rolls the car on through here. Now it's all about who can master the art of the draft and place themselves best for turn number 1. You'll see it's the case, 3 attempts between each of the drivers, and now on the straight you see McNeely pulling over to the right. He does a little weave here to break the toe temporarily, and as they come across that timing line, they have got just under 4 minutes to go. This time they're not close enough, but it is the case. They make the way in a line. Meanwhile, William Chadwick here side by side with Nick Clemens in the battle for P5 overall in the Pro class, and he's gone for the move down the inside well before turn 1. Clemens tucks in behind and waits for an opportunity to cut back, but he won't find it. as the Fordzilla driver gets the run out of the corner, and as they make their way into the right-hander of 2, it is a situation where Chadwick, I think, has got this place cemented and done. Because as they come through turn number 3, it is the case he is starting to pull a little bit there on Clemens. So Clemens will be in the tow from this point onwards up towards the next corner, turn number 7, and as a result that will be an opportunity. Meanwhile, a bit further down the road, I can tell you that Matt Emmons has found his way past Craig Cockrell, and we can see there in the rear of the picture Craig Cockrell struggling for the run with the damaged car, of course, and Sam Smith trying to catch up to him as they make their way in to the left-hander turn number 3. As we see Matt Emmons locking up the brakes there, and now this is where the wear on the brakes will really start to accumulate and be felt. And we'll take a look back at the move that was made only moments ago. As you see Cockrell there letting Sam Smith get alongside, and in fact backing off there, I think realising he's not really in this race in terms of pace on the straight. But here was the pass between Matt Emmons and Craig Cockrell for P16, and well, you can just see Matt Emmons being given the space there, and Cockrell, to be fair, gave him enough space to signal, I think, that he is driving a wounded car and he's not in race trim. So in the end, Craig Cockrell doing a little bit of racing, but 9 where the limit lies, and just trying to bring the car home for some points with less than 2.5 minutes to go plus that final lap. But meanwhile, we look back up towards our leaders here, and you can see Liam McNeely starting to pull a little bit of an advantage. In fact, they're getting out to 4 tenths as they made the way out of 13, and it's the long flat-out run through 14 down towards turn number 1 once again. And well, McNeely at this point, I think he may have figured out the formula to be able just to have enough of an advantage before turn 1's braking zone. And you can see Dean Fairclough looking for the move. It's a very, very long distance lunge, but to be fair, in the end they have played it out, and McNeely, I think, had to open the steering lock at the last minute to give the space. There was a bit of contact, and John Higgins will come on through for P2, but McNeely's not going to yield. And as they make the way into turn 3, McNeely comes back immediately on the inside of John Higgins. But my goodness, if the gloves hadn't already come off, they have now come off, and I think McNeely will know, right, that's that. And now coming back for you, Fairclough, who is 6 tenths, but he is being closed under slipstream here in the run up towards 7. And Fairclough will try and make the breakaway right now and hope that Higgins battles with McNeely for P2 for the rest of this race. But I think there might be another twist in the tail as they make the way down and around through the right-hander of 7. They have got one more lap after this. It's not going to be over just yet. And as they come down through turn number 8, you can see already where Fairclough is being closed up to by McNeely as they make the way into turn number 9. Further back, I can tell you that Lee Holmes here, well, he's in a comfortable P4 right now with William Chadwick closing, but not fast enough to take on the position, with Chadwick having Nick Clemens behind him. As they roll them through the corners right now, it is the case that I think our top 5 in particular may be pretty settled for the rest of this race, unless there is a major mistake for anyone, but we will wait and see as they make the way down and around towards 11. But as they come charging on through, it is the case that we look back up towards the battle for P8. In fact, we look a bit further up the camera and we see Mikey Doble here under pressure from one Adam Morgan, and both drivers keeping it together at the moment in the battle for P7 overall in the pro class. But meanwhile, as they make the way on through, we do look to our race leader, who in fact I think the race is going to end on this lap. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen, and it will be Deegan Fairclough who brings it home in a drag race to the finish line. He brings home the win ahead of Liam McNeely P2, John Higgins in P3, and they will be your pro podium. Lee Holmes P4, William Chadwick P5, and it will be Nick Clemens P6. Well, I have Mikey Doble P7, Adam Morgan P8, Adam Delmont P9, and then Lee Horne takes the win in the Prime class, and he'll be very pleased with that given how the results have gone. Ben Bennyworth P11, and Mark Oliver in the end will come home P2 in the Prime class. On the podium there, and another solid drive for Mark Oliver, and it'll be Matthew Addy who just holds off in that position there in P13 overall ahead of Nigel Stott on the podium in the Prime class. Nigel Stott P14. Paul Scott is your AM winner once again here in race number 3. A fantastic drive from Paul Scott, and then it will be Matt Emmons in P16 with Sam Smith P17, my goodness, just about to sneeze there. And then it will be Craig Cockrell P18, Jay Elliott P19, and then it's Ollie Peters who is P20 in the end, with David Whitehouse retiring from the race. No, he hasn't retired from the race, my apologies. He finished a lap down, but it was the case the last driver to finish on the lead lap was Ollie Peters, and Rob McGregor P22, Jamie Dury P23, Ben Williams P24. And let's bring you those full set of race results, ladies and gentlemen. So in the end, race number 3 was won by Dean Fairclough in a nip and tuck battle with Liam McNeely, albeit it came down to a lunge into turn 1 in the end, and that was enough for Fairclough to take the win by a tenth of a second ahead of Liam McNeely. John Higgins, a brilliant P3 for the Briton there, coming home P3, Lee Holmes P4, William Chadwick P5, Nick Clevens P6, Mikey Doble P7, Adam Morgan P8, Adam Delmont P9, and then Lee Horne completing our top 10 and our Pro-Am winner in race number 3, ahead of Ben Bennyworth, Mark Oliver P12, and Matthew Addy P13, with Mark Oliver and Matthew Addy completing the Pro-Am podium. Nigel Stock unfortunate to miss out on a podium slot in the Pro-Am class there. Paul Scott taking P15 and the win in the Am class ahead of Matt Evans P16, Sam Smith and Craig Cockrell completing our top 18. And then just outside of the top 18, but not to be forgotten about, Jay Elliott P19, P2 in the Am class ahead of Ollie Peters completing our top 20. David Whitehouse in the end finishing off of the lead lap there, P3 in the Am class, P21. And the rest of our drivers to finish off of the lead lap, Rob McGregor, Jamie Doria and Ben Williams. And we also had the retirements of Pete Newman and Glenn Humberstone early in the race due to the incidents they were involved in. Well, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, it was a very tricky race for all of our drivers. Some major incidents, and it was one of those situations, I think, for many, whereby it was a race to forget, but at the same time, for some, it will be a race to remember for some key points. Well, we're going to be hoping to hear from some of our drivers very shortly. We're hoping to hear from approximately 3 of our drivers in the post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back very shortly for our post-round interviews. You won't want to miss them. They're coming right up. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we'll be kicking off our post-round interviews, and we do have 3 drivers lined up for tonight, and that is Lee Horne, Matt Emmons, and Paul Scott. But we're going to be starting off with Lee Horne very shortly. If you just give us a brief moment to be able to bring him into the room, and we'll be bringing him into the interview room any second now. Good evening, Lee. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Paul.
Lee, looked very difficult out there at Zandvoort over the course of the 3 races, but in the end you were able to bring home an absolutely brilliant win in the final race in particular. How was it out there on the Dutch circuit for yourself?
Oh, it was a little frustrating, hoping to have had better results in the first 2 races, and unfortunately got, as you probably saw, tangled up in some things going on track that which just unfortunate part of racing. And I really needed a good result for that race 3. I managed to keep myself clean and pick the battles, as you probably saw, let through the people that I'm just not in any really competition with, and just to try and gain some points for that final race, because the first 2 were pretty much written off of where they were.
Indeed, and just dissecting things, although not lamenting on what is perhaps the worst parts of your night too much, qualifying didn't quite perhaps go the way you wanted it, although there was quite a good lap time out there. Do you think as though there was more on the table in qualifying?
Well, do you know what, Paul? It was really weird, because in practice I felt quite good and I knew I could get a high 54. So to then go out and sort of go backwards, for me, the car felt like I just had a lot more understeer and less turning, as if like maybe the track temps had come up a bit, and or either that, or I was overdriving it, trying to knowingly I could go quicker, but then overdriving it and not going quicker. So frustratingly, I was disappointed with qualifying, because I thought I could have been certainly up with Jamie in around the 54.8, and because I'd done a 55 dead, and I knew there was a couple of tenths in my time in practice. So a little bit frustrating. Not quite sure. Probably me overdriving than anything else, but maybe track temps as well.
Well, indeed. And then translating that through into the opening 2 races in particular, 2 15-minute sprints. I mean, they were both races rife with quite a few major incidents. And, well, yourself being involved in some of those incidents as well. Just take us through, not necessarily the incidents, because we don't want to recall them too much, but just what was going through your mind, particularly when race 1 was almost in the bin, then race number 2 comes along and it feels like a rinse and repeat. What goes through your mind to keep you motivated for race number 3 and trying to extract a result out of the final race?
Well, having what's become a reasonably good lead in the Pro-Ams, I try not to get too down about the fact that obviously I've had a couple of poor results. I know I've got some drop rounds to come, and this may well be one of them, just with the poor scoring. So having a week's break, I was sort of chomping at the bit to get back into league racing again. Haven't done much sim racing over this past week or so anyway. So it didn't really bring me down too much. Yeah, disappointment, of course. But it was like, come on, let's get on race 3, see what we can do, and just move forward. The worst thing you can do in sim racing is get all down and dismal about it, because it just affects how you then perform. So I try and remain positive and just move forward and take each race as it goes.
Oh, most definitely. And that was echoed very well going into race number 3 in particular, with, of course, a relatively good starting position. And it just seemed as though you had the pace. Just take us through, because there was quite a bit of battling between yourself and Craig Cockrell, which in the end saw Craig Cockrell drop it coming out of turn 3.
Yeah, I spotted him drop it behind me, and I saw him coming up. I mean, the start of the race, I just for the first time, I think, ever in the MX-5s, just got that perfect match of dumping the clutch out, not full throttle, but then going to full throttle, and you don't get the tyres up, but you get that little bit of slip of the tyres that just gets the full momentum, and it seemed like a really good start. But unfortunately, everyone else in front of me did as well, but the guys behind me didn't. So it started well. I avoided the twists and turns of the few people spinning around me to start with at the beginning, and then I thought, right, just keep your head down, stick with the quicker guys, pick the fights with those, don't fight the ones they don't need to, and then get on the back of them and follow them through. And it worked well, and I stayed clean, and got a good result. So I was happy with that.
Well, indeed, absolutely fantastic with that, and bringing home that win in the end. And well, looking now into the final 3 rounds of the championship, of course, we are going to have 4 rounds back to back, which is a bit of a test of the stamina and whatnot. How are you feeling for Interlagos in a week's time?
To be honest, I'm very excited about Interlagos. 1, because I love the track, and 2, because I've never really driven it. I think I bought it a couple of weeks ago with a view to getting some track time in, and so far I've put in probably 3 laps. So I'm excited to be on a new track on iRacing for me, and I've always liked Brazil, big fan of it from the F1, of course, and past sim games that I've been racing on. So yeah, looking forward to that. The Nords at the end of the season is going to be fantastic. I do love Nords. I won my recent touring car series there with the Crest NXTGEN WTCC series. So I'm really excited for the last few rounds. No matter what happens, I'm just going to enjoy it. So yeah.
Indeed, and that's what we love to hear at the end of the day, wanting to enjoy the race, and that's what it's all about. And before we let you go, in preparation for the build-up to Interlagos in a week's time, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out to or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, usual thanks out to all our sponsors, of course. Yourselves, see, Alex is missing this week, so all on your own. So thanks for putting in the extra effort to do the job on your own. And fellow admin, obviously, at NXTGEN, who help run everything, help support and help each other. And obviously to my family, should they be watching, which I hope they are.
Oh, that's absolutely great to hear, Lee. Thank you for joining us in the interview room. And, well, until in a week's time, we wish you all the best and congratulations on turning things around in race number 3 tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Cheers.
So hearing there from Lee Horne, very happy of how he ended his round number 9 on a high at Zandvoort, albeit it wasn't to be at the start, and as you heard there qualifying, it was almost as if there was just a little bit more understeering the car and just a bit of lap time missing, and then races 1 and 2 were full of incidents and Lee Horne being caught up in the incidents, and in race number 3 able to turn it around and just keep his head down and fight the sensible fight and only fight with the drivers he needed to fight with, and in the end it came to Craig Cockrell making a mistake coming out of turn 3, which gave Lee Horne the ability to break away and disappear off into victory. But now we must go from our first post-round interview driver to our second one, and that is Matt Emmons, the number 72 driver. Let's bring him on in here and hear what he's got to say.
A bit.
Hello, Matt. Can you hear me?
I can, Paul. How are you?
All good, thank you. But more importantly, Matt, how did it feel out there tonight over the course of the free race? It looked quite tricky there, particularly right in the midst of the prime pack.
Well, considering I only bought the track at 6:45 tonight, and having only done the test in the practice tonight, I must admit I'm quite happy with how I finished. I know it was the last race was a bit hard, with getting spun around on lap 2, I think it was. But yeah, overall, quite impressed with myself and looking forward to next week.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, and even more so with the limited amount of time to practice. And just take us through there, given that you pretty much, by the sounds of things, come into this round with quite limited expectations in terms of you having to learn and gain the lap time as you go. What's the process you've had to apply tonight? Because that's pretty rough. You're going racing on a track that you quote-unquote don't know in a car which you're only getting to grips with as you join midway through the season.
I'll just be on. I'm just in it to have some fun and get to know everyone a bit better. And I mean, everyone has the competitive side, and even I do myself. As you know, very well. But I'm just in it just to try and learn how to be fast, but be while driving slow. And I think the MX-5s are best things to learn how to drive and hit your apexes and everything like that. So I'm really enjoying myself.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. And now translating into the race, and we saw you in a good number of battles over the course of all 3 races. Some of those battles ending up more successfully than others. And particularly towards the end, obviously, race number 2 didn't quite go your way with the turn on what was lap number 2, as you say. Sorry, on race number 3 being turned on lap number 2, as you say. But it sounds as though in the opening 2 races, quite enjoying yourself in the mid-pack.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, I was surprised I was mid-pack. I was fully expecting to be 2 laps down by the end of the first race. But no, I like I said before, I'm just in it for the fun of it. I appreciate everyone at NXTGEN letting me join, and yeah, really enjoying it.
Oh, well, that's great. And looking ahead to 3 more rounds after this, of course, we head to Interlagos in Brazil in a week's time. How are you feeling for the legendary circuit that always is towards the end of any calendar, particularly in Formula 1?
Must admit, I'm really looking forward to that because, as you know yourself, it's really fun to drive in a GT, and I've done a lot of laps there. So hopefully the MX-5s, I can translate my pace from a GT to an MX-5 next week.
Oh, well, fingers crossed for you. And before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to say thank you to live on broadcast or give a shout out to?
I'd like to thank everyone at NXTGEN for the continued support, all of our sponsors, and yourself for your amazing work. And I'd just like to probably give a shout out to my dad, who's currently recovering in hospital at the minute.
Oh, Oh, goodness me. Well, I do wish you all the best for your dad. I'm sure everyone tuning in right now will be sending positive thoughts your way towards your dad. And, well, hopefully it's nothing too serious, but we won't ask you about that live on air. But with that in mind, thank you for joining us in the interview room. And we do look forward to seeing you out on circuit again in a week's time.
Thanks, Paul.
Take care.
And you.
So hearing there from Matt Emmons, and well, by the sounds of things, whilst he came into it relatively raw, at the same time enjoying the race pace and learning things as he goes with regards to the MX-5 and at Zandvoort, joining the series, of course, quite late on. And well, you can imagine with Interlagos, a circuit which, as he was saying, he does enjoy. He's enjoyed it in GT class cars, and well, he's going to be taking a nimble little Mazda MX-5 round there. And well, could he perhaps pull off a surprise set of results? What with a P5 in class in the final race of tonight. Could he even be on the podium at Interlagos? You never know. And speaking of things we never know, let's bring in our third and final driver for the post-round interviews tonight, and that is, of course, one Paul Scott. Let's bring him on in and hear what he's got to say, given the fact that he was really our winning AM driver for tonight. Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
I can, buddy, yes.
Paul, an absolutely sensational night tonight from yourself. Even though there are only 3 AM drivers taken to the field, in the end you proved to be perhaps the most consistent and the one to avoid all the incidents out of the 3. How do you feel your night's been?
It's probably my best round, to be honest. There is only the 3 in the AM class, but it's good racing, and it's important to just make sure you know who's in the pro-am, know who's in the pro, and sort of, it may look like you're just getting out the way, which you are, but it's more of a strategic battle, I would say.
Oh, indeed. And just dissecting that, we saw, rolling it all the way back to qualifying, we saw in qualifying that you're a little bit off the pace compared to David Whitehouse, who really has been the #1 guy in the AM class throughout the season, and in the end qualifying P2. But it seemed as though that wasn't really a demotivator in qualifying. It's almost as if it motivated you to have stronger races. Was that the case? You sort of thought to yourself, I'm going to get him in the race?
Yeah, with there only being 3 on track in the AM class, I know we've got 15 minutes to qualify, but after a couple of laps, you pretty much know where you're going to be, starting. So, I mean, part of me just wants to make sure I don't get in the way of any of the other drivers. Yeah, and then it's just hopefully I always beat my qualifying time in the race anyway, so I don't worry too much about the qualifying in this one.
Oh, indeed. And then going into the races themselves, all 3 races involving some major incidents, particularly races 1 and 2. And of course, with yourself being towards the back of the pack and having to witness it all almost flash before your eyes, just take us through in the opening 2 races in particular. You seem to be able to just avoid and pick your way through everything.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. There's good communication going on, and you got to give hats off to the organisers as well, because the new yellow flag system and the safety car system is really working really well. So you just got to be so just gentle and just read what's going on ahead of you. A lot of guys will just plow on through, but I know that if you just keep it on the track, then you've got a good chance of staying in it.
Oh, most definitely. And, well, with that mindset in mind, in the end, yielding those results time and time again. And then going into race number 3, of course, it was one of those situations with the full reverse grid, siphon your way through the order to finish P15 overall and take the win. How did it feel to come to the end of the 25 minutes and be the guy standing atop the AM podium?
It was good. There was a lot of pressure coming from behind from Matt and Ollie. They were catching me up, obviously. They were working together, so I knew they were coming. But yeah, it was just a little bit too far for them to catch me up. So it's. I think I may have even took the lead in the championship. I'm not sure. Maybe it's got a lot closer now with David. So it should be a good last couple of races.
Oh, indeed. And looking ahead to the last couple of races, particularly Interlagos, Brazil, and next time out in a week's time, how are you feeling for the circuit that's always towards the end of any calendar, including ours and the Formula One calendar?
Yeah, it's not one of my favourite tracks, so I'm going to have to put in a little bit more practice, I think.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on at Interlagos in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on your superb performances throughout tonight, and thank you for joining us in the interview room.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Take care. So hearing there from Paul Scott, very happy with his performances across the board, and we're looking ahead, of course, to Interlagos, and not looking forward to the situation at Interlagos with regards to his potential prospects, but you never know what he may be able to achieve over the course of the 3 rounds. Like tonight, it was the case, it wasn't quite there in qualifying, but he hooked it up very nicely in the actual race itself. Or the races, I should say. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings to a close our post-round interviews from our 3 selected drivers, and now we say thank you for watching. Indeed, we are coming to the end of time. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community and the series we run, why not check us out? Our official website, that is nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our official Facebook group, that is facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a big thank you to our partners, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this series, that is Crest Autosport at www.crestautosport.com. And on top of that as well, Bobby Thompson Motorsport, BobbyThompsonRacing.com. But now we look ahead to a week's time, where we head to the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, or known in short as Interlagos, Sao Paulo, Brazil, for round number 10. 3 rounds remain, and we head to the venerable circuit that has just a little bit of everything, and it will put our drivers and their MX-5s to the test. We'll be back on Monday, the 28th of February 2022, for round number 10. It'll be Alex Everett and myself back in the commentary box, but until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I have been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember as always to stay well, stay safe, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.